Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. It is a brand new episode of Bets and Banter. And this week on the show, we are talking about UFC 314. We've got Alexander the Great Volkanovski looking to get that belt back. It's a vacant featherweight title fight. He's taking on surging challenger Diego Lopes. And we're very excited to find out how it's all going to shake out on Saturday. My opinion, year to date, this is the best pay-per-view card that they put together in the UFC. The UFC been resting on their laurels a little bit, but now they're asses in the jackpot this weekend, and I think we've got a lot of great fights to break down. And without further ado, let's bring in a great guest with whom we're going to break them down. None other than WizzMMA back in the building. My brother, how are you?
Good. How are you doing, Liam?
I'm doing well, my man. We've got the coffee ready to rumble. We've got a lot of great fights to break down. Oftentimes, man, we come to this show and we level with people and say, hey, maybe not the best fights in the world, but we're going to break it down with the same effort and intensity. This week, if I didn't want to bet on any of these fights, I'd still probably be tuning into this fight card because the quality action is there. And I think that that's what we're all looking for as fans. If you look at a lot of these lines, certainly on the prelims, a little bit more big favorites. But when you look at how these matchups kind of shake out, a lot of closely lined fights, a lot of competitive fights, I think that there's a lot to look forward to, my man.
Oh, 100%. I mean, you look at the card top to bottom, and almost every single fight is exciting to watch. It's been a while since we've had a card this exciting and this action-packed from top to bottom. I want to say since 310 or 309. But man, I'm excited. I've been looking forward to this card ever since it got announced. And as the days gone by, the matchups kept piling on, and I was just like, how many more bangers can they add to this card? And here we are. Excited nonetheless, but let's go ahead and break this down for the people. I'm sure everyone's waiting to hear these breakdowns coming off of a good week. Only one bet last week, and then it was the planning the flag Deon Barbosa ITD, so went away with +2 units there. Now let's see what this week brings in store.
Very nice, my man. Last week, I gotta say, our four fight card win streak, I should say, came to an end. Unfortunately for myself, I thought about going with Barbosa. I thought it was a great play, but I kind of missed the boat in terms of the price. I also like the fight not to go for that Brito and Sabatini fight. But if you guys remembered, at least I was smart enough to say Pat Sabatini had a chance to come out there, look like the best bet on the card. I said that if he had a better chin, he'd probably be a top 5, top 10 guy in the division. I feel pretty vindicated about that. He absolutely audited Joe Anderson Brito there, 7-2 now in the UFC. And Diego Lopes treated him accordingly. So that's how he made it to the main event. But otherwise, guys, a lot of fascinating fights to talk about this week. So now we look ahead. We look to get back on track. Already got one bet fired. Already got a violence prop locked in. So, man, I'm feeling good. And let's start, as we always do, with the first fight of the night, my brother. We've got a ladies bout. It's going down at 135 pounds. And, we got to give the caveat here that if this fight takes place, we want to have talked about it, but there's a decent chance this fight doesn't make it to the bill. Hailey Cowan, I believe, has pulled out of 3 or 4 fights now in the UFC due to injuries, illness, all sorts of different things. So we wish her nothing but health and prosperity, but got to make it to the octagon to have the fight on Saturday. But if she makes it to the octagon, man, she's got a very violent woman on the other side awaiting her in Nora Cornolle. You look at her fights regionally. She's stopped women with low kicks. She's stopped women with strikes. She's bloodied people up before. Then you look at her performances in the UFC. Melissa Mullins has some credits as a, brown belt BJJ, world level competitor. She got absolutely audited in that fight. Her takedowns weren't enough. She couldn't hold her down. She couldn't keep top position. She got beat up and she got stopped and finished. She got knocked down in that fight. So you look at Nora Cornolle, she's got power to knock people down. She's going honest or better on strikes with everybody she's fought in the UFC. And the only person who's ever beaten her as a professional is Jacqueline Cavalcanti. She beat her in her first fight as a pro. She beat her just in her last match, but we saw her close the gap, right? She goes from a unanimous decision to a split decision. One judge wanted to give her the nod. And if you look at that fight, she's supposed to fight Jermaine Duran to be in that spot. She comes out instead, has a different opponent, an opponent that's beaten her in the past. She fought her honestly, 54-54 on significant strikes. Nobody got ahead of the other fighter really big. And then we saw an evolution to her grappling, more takedowns, more emphasis on getting top control. So I think Nora Cornolle showed some growth in that fight. Her biggest liability is getting taken down, getting held on her back. But as far as I'm concerned, if you've got a BJJ brown belt world champion that can't hold you down, you're doing a pretty good job finding moments to score offense when you're getting held down by Jocelyn Edwards in your first UFC fight. I think she's shown improvement over time. I think she's shown a lot of aggression. And I think that overall, she's just a much more trustworthy fighter in this spot. Her entire UFC career, she's 2-1 in the promotion, has taken place since Hailey Cowan last fought in the promotion, right? Hailey Cowan fought 2 years ago in April. She's coming back off a 2-year layoff. The girl's been pulling out for injuries and sicknesses. Like, there's nothing that's a bullish signal for me except the fact that she maybe could get a takedown. And on the other side, it's like Cornolle seems above average violence quotient for the women's side of the game. And then on top of that, I think she's improving fight over fight. I think she's getting a little bit more experience. So now give me the girl with activity who's violent, who I think has some finishing upside here. Give me Nora Cornolle in terms of my pick, who I think is going to win the fight. Do I want to lay minus 190, with a 35-year-old? Not really, right? Like, it's still low-level WMMA at the end of the day. 1-2 takedowns could be the difference maker here, but I just trust Nora Cornolle a lot more. I think she's more violent. I think she's more effective as a fighter. I think she's more passionate as a fighter. I like everything about her side more. So that's the way I see it. How about you, Wiz?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at both these prospects, I shouldn't say prospects, but when you look at both these ladies and you break down their game, Hailey Cowan mainly looks to get these fights to cage control positions where she dominates the clinch and just holds girls against the fence just because she's physically strong. And on the other hand, you have Nora Cornolle, who's a decent Muay Thai striker. But the one thing I'm going to highlight about the game, which is going to play right into Cowan's game plan here Cowan's game plan is going to be playing into what Cornolle is good at. Cornolle is really good at those clinch knees and those strikes from up close. We've seen her do it throughout her fights in the UFC, and every time girls try to clinch up with her or try to take her down, she's throwing up knees, she's throwing elbows, and they're pretty damaging shots. And the judges are loving the knees and elbows lately and have been scoring them pretty highly. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe she finishes Hailey Cowan with one of those knees to the body or an elbow to the eyebrow, cause some sort of cut stoppage. Just because Hailey Cowan, if she's not able to get her game going, she tends to shell up and not really know what to do in there. She's not really the best striker at all and has a huge deficiency there. So I think Cornolle inside the distance is an interesting look. I mean, the under 2.5 is at plus 160, and I get it. Cowan is a strong girl, but man, I just can't unsee the repetitive knees to the midsection. So obviously, I'm going with Cornolle to win the fight. Am I betting this fight? Hell no. I would rather not suffer heartache. But yeah, I think Cornolle gets this done via decision, but I wouldn't be surprised if she gets it done ITD.
Yeah, for me, the prices were pretty awful when I looked at the method of victory props. I mean, simply nothing that stood out as playable in those markets. Like, even the submission is plus 750, and she's not a primary grappler. That's gross to me. Looking at the prop market, though, the one thing I will glance at, I just want to see if I can get a decent enough price. Cornolle round 2 is 10-1 and round 3 is 15-1. I think if you were looking for a way to get involved on her side, that's kind of the way I do it. Most of her finishes so far in her career have come early, but I think that when you look at how this matchup plays out, Hailey Cowan is athletic. She's big, strong at the beginning of her fights, comes out, cage pushes. I think she gets tired. I think that that's when she's the most vulnerable. And I also think Cornolle just has more dog in her. So if this comes down to, we're both fatigued, who's going to bite down on the mouthpiece, keep coming forward and find a way to win? I just feel like Nora Cornolle is that woman. So again, is that minus 190? Maybe not. But at 10-1, 15-1, when I think it could come down to pace and cardio and who still wants to be there when the going gets tough, the girl who's been really active and in these tough 15-minute fights, or the girl who's been out for 2 years. Give me the girl who's been active. All right, man. Next up, we got Tresean Gore taking on Marco Tulio. And I think that this is an interesting fight, man, because on the one hand, I think the UFC has not done Tresean Gore much in terms of favors with the matchmaking. Like, clearly they gave him commensurate level of competition the last couple times out. He went out there, got the win, showed that, hey, he can win UFC level fights, but can he win high level UFC fights? Can he take a step up? Is he a prospect worth paying attention to? I think those are all more difficult questions to answer. And the thing about Tresean Gore is, I don't think he's a bad fighter. Like, I think he's kind of just gotten a raw deal. When you look at his skills, he was the guy that was projected to be like the ultimate fighter. Everybody was like, man, look at this guy, so athletic. He's got the skills, the dynamism. He wants to be here. He can thump. Like, he just had a lot of things going for him. And when you saw how that season played out, he gets hurt on that season. It's kind of been an analog for what's happened in the UFC. Like, a lot of ability, a lot of expectations, and the results haven't just quite matched up, with what people expected from him. And so now he's 2-2 in the UFC, a respectable record, certainly, but he is a guy that, suffered a knockout loss against Cody Brundage, lost to Bryan Battle, who has since dropped down a weight class. So it's not a bad loss, but it's a loss where you say to yourself, okay, that was a tough one, right? Bryan, a little more experienced, and he did some damage to Bryan. I think people forget about that if they haven't rewatched that fight. He busted up his eye. Bryan had to be a lot more judicious and on the bike and pump out the jab, keep moving, use your footwork. It was a very smart performance from Bryan Battle, but Tresean at least showed he was competitive there. He could give an honest account of himself. So we know that Bryan Battle was the real ultimate fighter, but Tresean Gore, good enough fighter, stuck around, got some wins. Now he's on a 2-fight winning streak. Now he's choking people out in the first round, doing his damn thing. But the problem I have with Tresean Gore is watching his fights back, even the fights where he's having a lot of success, he just looks like he starts to fall apart out there the longer the fight goes. Watching him against Cody Brundage, he's having some success, and, Cody starts wrestling initially, and then he kind of realizes, like, man, I'm tiring myself out wrestling this guy, and I can land when he's coming in. So he just starts backing up, picking his shots with the jab, picking his shots with the 1-2, puts him down. And so then Tresean Gore takes some time away, clearly made some improvements to his game. I thought he came out looking a lot sharper on the feet in his next fight, but he's also firing off takedowns. He's using a lot of energy quickly, and he's not holding people down very much. So it feels to me like he's going to come out there with about 7 minutes of piss and vinegar, try and take you down, try and throw you around, try and look for the choke, try and beat you up. And if it doesn't come through, I just worry about how things go, because I feel like we've seen his cardio start to flag a little bit. He was able to get that choke on Fremd, but Fremd looked like he was turning up the pressure on him and having a lot of success, just shot for a takedown he didn't need and put himself away. Bad idea. Then you look at that last fight, that other guy just had nothing for him, right? Like, he's picking him up, throwing him around, beating him up, grabbing his neck along the cage line. Like, that guy just did not look like he wanted to be there from the word go. And then Marco Tulio on the other side, he looks like a real prospect to me. Shootbox Diego Lima guy, got a very quality win, in my opinion, over Yusri Belgarui on the Contender Series. So Yusri's not the best fighter you've ever seen, but he won a Contender Series fight. They just didn't sign him because he's kind of boring and he can't grapple so good. But otherwise, it's like the guy is long, awkward, kickboxer. Like, Tulio just did the path of least resistance, tried to wrestle him, control him, grapple him a little bit. Wasn't the most aesthetically appealing fight. Then you watch his knockouts on the regional scene. I think you can see the way he will eventually lose a fight, which is the guy takes risks. He invites crazy exchanges at middleweight. If you get into one of those crazy exchanges, even one time, it could be the end of the fight, right? Just one mistake. So I think that is what Tulio is like. The downside with him is like, he likes to look for the finish. He likes to get aggressive out there. There's one fight, he jumps in for a flying knee. The dude clips him on the way in. It's like the only time he got hit in that whole fight, but he's just going crazy out there and left some opening. So for me, I think that they're probably going to have a pretty competitive scrap for 6 minutes here. I just think Tulio has more to give down the stretch. I think he's got better cardio. I think he's got a little bit better composure, better overall offense. I would say his consistency is better as well. So for me, that's the ultimate pick here. I think Tulio is going to win because he's the better fighter, but this price is a little prohibitive for me just because I think Tresean Gore has a record that doesn't reflect how good he is. Like, he's got a tough run in the UFC, and they tried to feed him to Bo Nickel. They haven't been nice to him, right? But he does have some athletic intangibles. He hits like a truck. Now we know that if you get put in that front headlock series, like, this dude might rip your head off. That Josh Friend submission is one of the most violent you'll ever see in the UFC, dude. He almost turned that guy inside out. So I don't think he's going to be choking Tulio. but Tulio's only 1-0 career to the submission. Shootbox Diego Lima, guy's got some wrestling in his back pocket, but his jiu-jitsu isn't something that he falls back on typically. So if he shoots some takedowns here and puts his head into a guillotine, like, again, we just know that Tresean Gore can make you pay for that if you do it one time in the wrong position. So I think he's got some violent possibilities, but if he's not finishing this fight in the first 6 to 8 minutes, I just think he's going to have a really hard time winning it. How do you see this one going down, Wiz?
Yeah, I mean, for those who don't already know, I've been pretty high on Tulio ever since his regional tape. And Gore, after looking further into it, the guy was touted to be this knockout artist at middleweight, and he's this big finisher. And he has finished some fights in the UFC, but in terms of knockout power and hand speed, I just don't see it. The guy has 2 knockouts in 11 fights. I believe it's only as well 2 knockdowns in those 11 fights as well, from what I've seen in tape. It's a little concerning, especially going up against a guy like Tulio, who is known for the hand speed, is known for the power on the feet. Now, I think it would be silly if he tries to mix it in here with Tresean Gore and try to grapple and wrestle him. I'm not saying Tresean Gore is the most scary jiu-jitsu guard player in the world, or it's just like what you said. He can snatch up those front chokes, it seems like, at any point. And Josh Fremd, known for his, I guess not known for his jiu-jitsu, but I guess a credentialed grappler.
I mean, I don't think he got submitted by Fluffy Hernandez, for example.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure they went to decision, and Fluffy's a front headlock master himself. Tresean Gore just got a hell of a squeeze.
Mm-hmm. Dude was about to rip his head off. That was scary. And I was on Josh Fremd in that fight. I was so upset because he was finally coming along, and then boom.
He's touching him with the jab. He's looking crispy, and then all of a sudden he's like, you know what, let's wrestle again.
I'm like, is that Mr. Mike Tyson? No. But nonetheless, I think Tulio wins this fight pretty quickly. I think it's going to be a first-round knockout. Not a shocker. Plus 375. I already played that number on the KO one. I just think that it's too clear of an opportunity for Tulio. He's going to be able to take advantage of the slow striking from Gore. And the one thing that's not going to serve Gore well is his footwork. He doesn't really circle out. He goes backwards. And Tulio just likes to throw those straight shots. And if you're going backwards, at some point, those straight shots are going to land. And all it's going to take is one from Tulio, and you'll be out. So give me Tulio KO 1. I think he's a good parlay piece.
Respect that, my man. I think that Tresean Gore, difficult guy for me to cap, but right now, if I had to make a pre-fight favorite, definitely Tulio. I think he's the better prospect. I think he's probably destined to do a little bit more. Got more professional experience, but it's one of these weird fights where you have an inverse relationship between the professional experience and the UFC experience, right? Tresean Gore, he's on his 5th UFC fight. He was on The Ultimate Fighter. He's kind of been around for a long time. And then on the other side, Marco Tulio, he's only making his sophomore appearance in the UFC, but he's had 14 fights as a professional. So you have to think he's about ready at this point. 30 years of age, should be in the prime of his career, skills in all positions. So Tulio's the pick here, but I just think Tresean Gore is like an enigma, right? I really have no idea what to make of this guy still. All right, man. Next up, we got Mitch Raposo taking on Su Mudaerji in a flyweight contest. And this might be, a loser leaves town match. Obviously, Mitch Raposo early on in a UFC contract here, but he is a guy that's not really beaten anybody at a UFC level yet, so kind of needs one of those big wins to set himself apart from the crowd. And on the other side, Su Mudaerji, 3-4 in the UFC, staring down the barrel of a tough run, but the guy, in my opinion, showed maybe his best form to date against Charles Johnson. It just didn't work out for him because Charles is a good fighter. So how do you see this one, Wiz? I'll kick it over to you first.
Yeah, so first thing I'm going to talk about is the intangibles. You have a 3-inch height advantage for Su, and I think it actually might be 4. And then the reach is just, it's a lot. It's 6.5 inches of reach. No, 7.5 inches of reach there. And someone who primarily is a striker is going to benefit from that reach advantage. Also, something that's very underrated that people don't really talk about is these guys with the longer reach, they can tend to threaten the front chokes a lot easier, especially at this lower weight class where guys are a little bit more scrawny, a little bit smaller, a little bit easier to wrap their hands around their neck. But where this fight is going to take place, if it's a Mitch Raposo's fight and it goes according to his game plan, it's going to be the wrestling and the takedowns and landing multiples of them in multiple rounds, draining out Sue and testing his gas tank. Because in the past, Sue has shown, very hit or miss, questionable gas tank where after 7.5 minutes, he just tends to fall off a cliff. But in that last fight against Charles Johnson, he proved a lot of people wrong. He took that year layoff, went up against Charles Johnson, and Johnson couldn't really seem to land the takedowns as easily as people thought he would. And in the second round, I believe it was, Sue almost finished him like twice. Looked really sharp in that performance. Again, Charles Johnson is not no bum. And for a lack of better words, no disrespect to Mitch Raposo, I just think it's a huge step down in competition. So I think Sue's going to be able to land at range here. And as long as he's able to defend those takedowns like he did against Charles, I think he either 30-27s Mitch or more likely finishes Mitch by KO. I think it's a late finish here, round 3 knockout for Sue.
Interesting take, my man. I definitely see where you're coming from. I think that this is a compelling fight, on a number of different levels. When I'm looking at the dynamics here, first thing that stood out to me is the low kicks. Andre Lima was absolutely torturing Mitch Raposo with the low kicks whenever he would decide to throw them. And he kind of went away from them at certain points in the fight. But Sumo Darji, if you look back at what was his most effective tool against Charles Johnson, I would argue it was the low kicks, man. He was slapping those legs around, kicking him out of his stance, doing a lot of inside, outside work, And I think that when you look at Sumo Darji, his grappling leveled up in that last performance big time. He goes from getting kind of audited in the grappling a lot of times in a row to showing some real resistance there, looking for some submissions, being offensive. I thought that was a great step in the right direction for him. And on the other side, if you're looking for Mitch Raposo's skills, I think he mixes in a nice takedown from time to time. I don't think he's a great wrestler, though, to be frank. I think if you watch that Lima fight, you kind of see some of the flaws in his wrestling. Daniel Cormier uses a phrase I like as a coach, cheating the finish. Looking for the finish by just trying to rip the guy to the ground and not being technical. And that's what leads to the guy instantly getting back up to his feet. So I just felt like we kind of saw a decent performance from Mitch in a loss. And I think he showed how he could win UFC fights, right? Go out there, mix it up, land some power shots. I thought he actually won the third round potentially against Andre Lima. I don't think there's another round you could really argue he won. I thought the split decision was absurd for that reason. But when you look at it, he didn't compete poorly there. And he did a little bit better in the second than the first. I think maybe that's what swayed a judge to give it to him. But you just look at what did he really accomplish? He landed a couple good combinations down the stretch. And he had a couple decent takedown entries. I really didn't see a ton. I did see the makings of a fighter that's decent, but here's the other thing I didn't love about that performance. He comes to the corner and, he goes, he's going to get tired to his corner after wasting the first round. It's like, this is a 15-minute fight. Let's make him tired. Don't say he's going to get tired. Go make somebody tired with pressure, right? Effective pressure is what makes somebody tired. So I think that in this fight, I think Sue is going to be getting off with low kicks from the outside. He's the bigger guy. He's the older guy, but not old, right? He's on the right side of 30. And if he's not chinny, I think he should win this fight. My one concern with Sumo Darcy is no longer the grappling. I feel like in this fight, I trust his grappling more than Mitch Raposo, honestly. We've seen Mitch Raposo get submitted too. I think that maybe Mitch is a little bit better entering legs to wrestle, but after what I saw from Sue last fight, I don't know that he's head and shoulders above him in jiu-jitsu or something like that. I truly don't feel that way. So, okay, if I'm just evaluating their skills, we've got one guy with a massive size advantage who I think has clear skill advantages on the feet. I don't think Mitch Raposo can compete at kicking range. If you listen to the commentary on his last fight, they were criticizing him for hanging out at kicking range way too long. And I kind of agreed with that criticism, right? He did a lot of head movement in kicking range, just allowing somebody to slap at his legs, slap at his body. And I think Sue is going to take advantage of that. The thing that concerned me in the Johnson fight was that he got really, really badly hurt in the second round. He was nearly finished with strikes. I think Mitch Raposo does pack a decent, 1-2. I think he can land with power when he goes in combination. He's a classic New England cartel guy. right? Look at Calvin Kattar. Is he a great wrestler? No. But if you stink at wrestling, he can out-wrestle you, right? It's like, if you look at his skills, is he a great striker? No, against the best strikers, he's going to get exposed, but he's a damn good striker. He can box. And if you want to box with him, he will box hard. He can punch hard. He can commit to his shot. So those are the things that kind of stand out about them. Rob Font as well, right? Emphasis on the jab. The difference is, though, those guys are both long, right? Calvin Kattar can box long. Rob Font has one of the longest jabs in the division. Mitch Raposo is kind of tiny, so he's got to use this boxing game, but he's got to get really close to you to do it. And if he tries to mix in the wrestling, I feel like he's baiting front headlock attempts from Sumadarshi here that could be lethal. You know, I thought Su's ground game looked sharp last time out. So, yeah, man, I just see more experience, more lethality on the Sumadarshi side. And this is a must-win fight. You know, we'll talk about a couple guys like, you know, some guys are in a point where, hey, I'm getting experience, I'm building up. Like Sumadarshi was supposed to be a guy, and he's kind of fallen on hard times, right? But now it's put up or shut up time. You know, guy who doesn't have UFC level wins. Can you get this job done? Go out there and prove it to us. And my guy Moyes just said the quiet part out loud. Fight ends in sub. I think that's sneaky. It's in the 5XX range. I ain't gonna say too much, but y'all just investigate the numbers there. Yeah, y'all do some arithmetic and see if you're picking up what I'm putting down. But in any case, man, I think it should be a fun fight, an interesting scrap. And I don't think that's a bad way to play it at all. So shout out to the sharpest chat in the game, always giving us great ideas, bangers in the chat. And I was keeping that one in the pocket, and then my guy Moyes out of pocket told everybody it's a great look in my opinion, and something I will be on for this weekend. So there's a little spoiler alert for you. But in any case, guys, we can move along to the next fight on the card. We got Cedricus Dumas taking on Lord Michal Oleksiejczuk, or Husar Michal Oleksiejczuk, depending on who you ask. I believe Husar is a Polish nickname. I know we had the Hanyak, Dustin Jacoby. I don't know what Husar means. I'll have to look it up. I think Hanyak means like little goblin or something. So shout out to the Polish. They've got some great nicknames. But Wiz, we're going to kick this one over to you first, my brother. I led off on the first two. We'll have you lead us off on the next two. So, my man, thank you so much. What do you think about this fight?
Very intriguing fight here. Let's just throw this out there because it's been public and a lot of people have been talking about it. Michal is now training at Fighting Nerds, no longer in his garage. And I'm just going to put it this way. Those garage performances were not that bad. He almost finished Kevin Holland until he gave him his arm. That was impressive. But nonetheless, I think that's just going to elevate his overall game planning and just, hopefully help his fight IQ there. When you look at the Cedricus Dumas side, you're going to find someone who best weapon on the feet is going to be that high kick that he throws. But other than that, very slow and ploddy when it comes to his strikes. He's mainly going to look to take Michal down here, and that's going to be Michal's whole thing. If he's able to keep this fight upright, I do think that he has a pretty straightforward way of winning this fight through the striking, whether it's by finish or whether it's just a decision. A Michal decision is something that I've been looking at. Let me pull up what the current number is on BetOnline. But over 1.5 is the one look in this fight that's been screaming at me, because when Dumas takes guys down, he doesn't really tend to advance position too much. He likes to lay and pray, and he does land subtle ground and pound here and there, but not really the type of guy that's going to look for submissions, or he's not really opportunistic with them. And Michal just tries to lock people down when he's on his back. So I think that plays hand in hand with the over 1.5. And on the feet, sure, I think Michal can finish Dumas at any point. Dude has heavy hands, and he's shown it time and time again. But I just struggle to see it happening here, especially with the reach advantage for Dumas. It's going to be a little bit hard to find him. So ultimately, I think over 1.5 is a really good look here at -150. But the one that's, like I said, that's really piquing my attention is Michal by points at +275. Really not a bad look at all. I think this fight goes to decision about 7 times out of 10. So for me, the fighter that I likely think wins is Michal, and taking him by decision there at +275 is not terrible. I'm going to line shop and see what I can get on some of the domestics and go from there. But I do think Michal takes this fight on pure volume. and defending the takedowns. I'm sure he's gotten some good looks at Fighting Nerds, rolling with Kaio and rolling with some of the guys there in terms of the grappling and wrestling. So I think his game will be well matched for this fight. But yeah, I think Michal decision is the most likely outcome.
Fair play, my man. I think our only major point of disagreement here would just be I think Michal is really live to knock him out. When you look at how Michal fights, like he brings a lot of pressure. He's got a lot of power in his hands, and he swings heavies. You know, if you want to engage with him, like he's gonna bring you a fight heavily. Right? A lot of guys, bro, Shara Bullet is turning into a wrestler against Michal Oleksiejczuk. He's like, I don't need this shit in my life, you know? And a lot of guys do. And I would not be surprised at all if Dumas does that here. You know, for me, the upside he has, he reminds me of Hailey Cowan in that, you know, I could see multiple takedowns here, right? Like if he gets multiple takedowns, that makes sense to me as how he wins this. He also has a pretty decent high kick. You know, he's fast, snappy with that. But aside from that, like, I just do not like what I've seen from this guy when he's in extended striking exchanges in the UFC. And he has yet to beat an opponent with a winning record in the promotion. His best win is over Cody Brundage, almost exclusively in the wrestling and grappling. And so you have to give him credit for going from the guy who got submitted instantly by Josh Fremd to the guy who is out wrestling Cody Brundage, who wrestled in college. Like, that is an impressive turnaround, a juxtaposition, right? But you also know that Cody Brundage has made a lot of mistakes in the octagon, right? He's a guy that doesn't always fight optimally. So we can all be frank about that. On the other side, you know, you look at the wins that he does have. Dennis Tululian, he's like 1-5 in the UFC. Not a very good fighter at all. You know, just basically a walking punching bag. Enhancement talent is what they would call him in professional wrestling. No disrespect. So that's kind of the way that I see his wins, right? Abu Asaitar, that guy's not a fighter. Like, you know, hats off to him in terms of respect. He steps in the cage. He's not afraid to compete. I just mean, like, the guy is full-time doing other things. Like, he fights sometimes, you know? It's like every so often he's like, I should have a cage fight. Let's see how it goes. Like, he's just not a full-time UFC fighter. So, Michal Oleksiejczuk, the difference is this guy, as battle-tested as it gets, light heavyweight division, he's out there with the biggest guys, the heaviest hitters, scary guys. He's basically undersized in every fight. Competed well. He has a winning record in the promotion. He's had a lot of fights, and he's 30 years of age. So is he an old man? Is he washed? Is he, is he spent force? I don't think any of that's true. And if you remember, I used to cap Oleksiejczuk fights by saying, like, this guy's training in his garage. He's ready to retire. He's talking about the fact he's going to lose. That all tells me, like, this is not going to go well. Now he says, I packed up my whole life. I went out to Fighting Nerds. I did a 6-week training camp with my former opponent because I respected him so much, and I thought it was impressive how he beat me. And Caio Barajo was so blown away by how respectful and, like, basically enthusiastic this guy was that he's like, fuck, I have to have this guy out to my gym. So now Michal's out there having a good time, getting confidence up, training with good guys. Like, I never wanted to be like, hey, you know, he's got great training partners, so he's going to win the fight. But it's like, he's a good fighter with a lot of experience that's now trying to give himself the best chance to win. And again, I talked about it on another fight, right? Suma Darji kind of needs this one, or shit's going sideways, right? Maybe not employed when he wakes up on Monday morning. What about Michal Oleksiejczuk? This guy's lost a lot of fights. This guy's been on the wrong end. But you go back to that Kevin Holland fight, and Kevin Holland gets dropped, and he's hurt, and he goes for a submission, and the referee bails him out. Bro, he didn't even tap. I had Kevin Holland by sub. We'll take the money. He didn't even tap. So this guy, Michal, is like, man, I can't catch a break in this organization. Like, should I even do this anymore? 30 years of age, man. He's clearly talented. Now he's all in on his preparation. I feel like this guy's going to come out and get, you know, a big win here, remind people what time it is. But ultimately, it's all to be done on Saturday night. He's got to defend the takedown. He's got to keep this upright. He's fighting a guy from Florida, right? Crowd's probably going to be behind him. But Mikey O is very good when he walks people down, hits them to the body, throws upstairs. I think he could hurt him to the body. I think he could hurt him to the head. I think that as long as he doesn't get head kicked or taken down multiple times, this is his fight to lose. So that's the way I see it,
man. Dude, you got to read that comment by Rob.
Absolutely. All right, let's see what the sharpest chat in the game has to say. We've got Dumas does not like getting hit. We've got Dumas has no edge anywhere, does not belong in the UFC from our guy Gamblestein. Interesting. Okay. Michal floors this man. I'm biased here. Fair play. In Polish, hussar refers to a member of a historical light cavalry. Wow. Okay. So he's a Polish soldier. Soldier hours for Michał Oleksiejczuk. He needs that UFC contract, baby. What else do we got here? We got Dumas could easily fold up shop, says Green King. Wiz says the good old days of working with Brundage. Very nice. Very nice. Can't convince me Cody didn't give that away. Going for the same guillotines. Yeah, I tend to agree. I agree with Wiz. Michael doesn't move enough on his back. Dumas is a striker by nature who hates getting touched. Fair play. Smash the like, says Chris. I couldn't agree more. That would be a very helpful thing for you. Azaitar brothers sell potatoes. Yep. True that. They certainly sneak him into Fight Island. Cashed on Kaio. First finish there. Very nice. Hey, not his first finish. I had his contender series finish. Dumas is Holland up from Timu. Very nice. Very nice. Oh my goodness. Cooking him. Hey, well, we're rooting for Mikey O, but may the best man win. We'll find out on Saturday night. Next up, my man, we got Darren the Damage Elkins taking on Juicy J, Julian Erosa. And Wiz, I'm going to be pretty straightforward with this one. Like, this is the kind of fight that tests your understanding as an MMA fan. I feel like if you're an analyst, you look at this and go, I mean, Julian Erosa really should win this fight, right? But the problem is these are the exact fights that Julian Erosa classically loses, right? And that's just something that from years of experience, you got to start to learn, situation is everything. Am I saying that Julian Erosa shouldn't be favored? He obviously should be favored. He's a dynamic fighter, scary guy in the first round. He can choke you. He can knock you out. He can kick you in the head. He's a dangerous fighter. But when you have 11 losses as a professional, when you've been stopped with strikes 7 times, when you're 5-4 career to the decision, you have to start asking, like, is this guy reliable to trust with my money at a major favorite indication? And I think almost all the evidence points to no. If you bet on Julian Erosa every time that he was favored to win a fight in the last 10 years, he's 3-3, right? So by the way, he's had plenty of fights. He's 3-3 as a favorite for a negative return on your investment. So if you've been betting it, you've been losing money. Not good. Then you say to yourself, okay, how about the times where he won? At least he ran away with it, right? He made it look like he was a huge favorite. No, he goes to split decision with Steven Peterson the last time he was a big favorite like this. So this seems to me like the exact kind of fight that Julian Erosa could either come out here and, maybe pull off the same thing that Cub Swanson and Chad Mendez and Ricardo Lamas were able to do and, clip this guy on the chin and hurt him. But if he's not able to do that, what he would need to try and do is be Charles Oliveira, right? A guy who in 2010, 15 years ago, submitted Darren Elkins. That's the last time. An undefeated Charles Oliveira. Y'all know how many times Charles has lost. An undefeated version of Charles Oliveira. It's the last guy to submit Darren Elkins. So the guy has been lights out in terms of his submission defense. The guy has been honestly harder to finish with strikes than he should have been, right? Like if you just look objectively, he should be getting doctor stopped all the time. The guy bleeds in every fight. He just fights hard every time for your money. Not going to quit on himself. So you can kill him, right? Cub Swanson's just dancing on him, styling on him. That is a way that this fight plays out. Julian Erosa, fast, dynamic. If he comes out here dialed in with a really smart game plan, he's going to move. He's going to punt this guy in the head. He's going to punch him. He's going to step out of the way. He's going to do it again. And that's all that the fight is going to be, right? Because speed matters. And, dynamism matters. A 35-year-old Julian Erosa with good head kicks, with good footwork, should be able to move around this guy, poke him with the jab, kick him in the head, and eventually finish him. But the truth of the matter is, if we've learned anything about these two guys, it's that one of them absolutely thrives when they're an underdog, when they're doubted, when they go out there to make it a dirty dog fight, greasy, grimy. By the way, 16-4, I believe, is his career record to the decision. So if the judges get involved, you fucking lose when he's out there. So it's like you're going to go up against that, and it's a guy that hardly wins when the fight goes to the judges, a guy that gets knocked out by strikes a lot, and a guy that is lights out with the submission against a guy who's nearly impossible to submit. It's just tough fight, Submitting Christian Rodriguez is a fucking feather in your cap. There's no two ways about that, period. But Christian Rodriguez has had 15 fights or something. It's just a way different level of guy. And again, if you said to me, who's better right now, like who's more dangerous right now, Christian Rodriguez or Darren Elkins? Christian Rodriguez. But Christian Rodriguez was fighting for a knockout. He's fighting for the first round. He goes out there, spends all his energy, gasses out. Darren Elkins doesn't do shit like that, right? He's steady Eddie. He is the most consistent guy in the division. I will attempt takedowns. I will punch you in the head if you're on bottom. I will look to make it a greasy fight. I will reverse. I will try and roll out if you grab my neck. Like, you know everything that's going to happen in a Darren Elkins fight. And if you don't finish him, you know that it's going to be greasy. You know it's going to be ugly. You know he's going to make you sweat. So it just seems to me like the kind of fight where it's either Erosa early or it's Darren Elkins via gross split decision. That's the way I truly believe this fight goes. How do you see this one, Wiz?
Yeah, you kind of summed it up pretty perfectly there. Erosa is somebody that you only want to trust with that dog price. And Elkins, time and time again, has shown that if he's able to extend this fight, if he's able to survive the initial flurry, he can cause a lot of problems, because the one thing about Elkins that nobody talks about is just his relentless cardio. Dude just is out there time and time again showing that he can land multiple takedowns in different rounds, and he can keep up with the pace. The one thing about Julian Erosa is that he's going to try and pace you. That's for sure, early and often. And if he's able to land one clean on the chin, who knows if the damage just took too much damage and is not able to continue from there, or if Elkins is able to hang in there, survive, and make this a dogfight. I think if this goes beyond a round and a half, the Elkins line may be worth a look, depending on how the fight's going, obviously. But yeah, you almost never want to back Juicy J in a favorite spot. But man, he really should win this fight. I think this is a very winnable fight for Erosa, and I'd be genuinely shocked if he loses. But it's happened before, so I'm not ruling it out. So for me, it's a dog or pass, but definitely passing.
Yeah, the thing for me, man, is let's just go in and examine Julian Erosa's record, right? He's 8-7 in the UFC, so he does have a winning record. Let's talk about the wins. Christian Rodriguez, great win. I mean, there's literally just I'll take nothing away from that. It's a fantastic win. Ricardo Ramos, he got dropped badly in that fight. You know, I bet him there. I bet him by, or not on the money line, I don't think, but I bet him by submission, like plus 675. And my whole write-up for that was Ricardo Ramos' soft grappling performance last fight. Like, he basically quit against Jourdain after getting out of a guillotine and putting himself right back in it. I was like, that's not good against Erosa. Erosa gets hurt badly, finds a way to submit him. Hats off to you. Fernando Padilla. Fernando Padilla in his last fight looked horrific, right? And again, it's like, maybe he just had one off night. We'll throw that one out of the sample. But it's like, that was a bad look, right? I think that it was arguably an early stoppage, but Padilla just smoked him like Woodson smoked Padilla. Not very good look. Doing the stanky leg a few times in the first round. Alex Caceres, good fighter, but UFC journeyman. Like, definition of a UFC journeyman. Kicks him in the head, instantly puts him down, you know? So, again, is he the same archetype of fighter of Darren Elkins? No. But is he on that same tier? Yes. A guy with a lot of UFC wins and a lot of UFC losses. A lot of experience, but a lot of losses too. Like, not a guy that's consistent to win every fight. Okay. Beats Hakeem Dawodu, who's done very little in the division since. Steven Peterson, split decision. That was a gross fight. Like, that's the kind of fight you're supposed to win, look good, get a finish, show out. Steven Peterson's retired. Like, you know what I mean? He doesn't even fight no more. God bless him. We wish him the best. But it's like, I'm 99% sure that guy retired already. He beat Jourdain, and that was a fight where, you know, it was kind of back and forth and whatever, and then he just gassed him out, caught him late. Hats off to you. Great performance, right? It's not easy to submit Jourdain. That's fair. Sungwoo Choi, a guy who literally can't buy a win in the UFC. I believe he just got cut from the promotion. So you start going back through, like, the Nate Landwehr flying knee knockout, you're like, that is what should happen in this fight, right? Like, if you can do that to Nate the Train, you should be able to sprint across the cage, flying knee, thanks for playing, all over for, the damage. But if that doesn't happen, you're just like, it's going to be a tough one. You know, it's going to be a tough out. And I again, I'm going to pick Julian Erosa, but there's just something telling me, like, this is the kind of fight that he fumbles, you know, historically. So buyer beware.
One thing before we move on to the next fight, Steven Peterson, I believe he's a commentator now. I forgot the name of the promotion, but he's a commentator now. So I wish him luck. And then second thing, when I was at the PI this past weekend, I saw Erosa just training, and dude looks to be in really good shape. So that's just what I saw.
Erosa, you said?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, perfect. Interesting. Yeah, I would think so. He trains at Elevation, I believe.
Not Extreme Couture.
Oh, yeah. He's an extreme guy. Interesting, man. What was I thinking? Is he from Colorado? He's from Washington. Okay. Now you know. If you don't know, now you know. Julian Erosa. He fought in Denver. That's why I was thinking that. Maybe he has some connection with Denver. I don't know. Now I have to look into that more because I remember they booked him against C-Rod in Denver, and I thought that he said that he had some connection there, but it is not important. What's more important is the next fight. Chase the Dream, my UFC money printer. He's now not a very good betting commodity, right? My man is steamed out to minus 700. It's like Tatsuro Taira. There was a day you could bet him at minus 215 against generic flyweight. And then one day he's minus 700 against Edgar Chairez. And you're like, the ship has sailed. It's all gone. So now for me, this feels like the kind of fight where, hey, the value's gone on Chase Hooper, right? The cat's out of the bag. The guy can really fight. But 7-3 in the UFC, lights out grappling. I think he's sensational. His pace is phenomenal. His ground and pound is very, very dangerous. Nobody wants to be underneath this guy right now. On the other side, we've seen him get absolutely chin-checked as a huge favorite before in the UFC. When you look at Jim Miller, what has he done lately to win fights? Mostly hurting guys on the feet, landing big shots. He's got a great left hook, leads out with his damaging blows, can throw a half-decent calf kick as well. So at 41 years of age, I think Jim's got 7.5 minutes basically to come out here and try and knock out Chase Hooper. And I don't think he's 0% to do that, right? So that's the way I'd look to invest in Jim Miller is if I was liking that side, I'd be small on the money line. I'd be looking at some plays on him via KO or KO rounds 1-2, something like that. That's the way ultimately I see Jim having a chance to win this fight. For me, though, the way I see this going most likely, I see Chase Hooper just running away with this on pace. I think in the first, he would be wise to throw some kicks, move around, maybe initiate a couple takedown attempts. Whether he ends up on top or bottom, I really don't think matters. I think what matters is making Jim fight him at a decent enough pace that Jim is exhausted in the second round, which I expect to be the case. And the thing about Chase is he builds, man. If you are out there with Chase Hooper and you have not hurt him, you have not damaged him, he's going to pick up the pace on you over time. And what he used to be was a scrawny 18-year-old. So he did not have a great time trying to drag people down to the mat. When you're a 25-year-old and you have man strength now and you have an ability to understand my bread is buttered on the ground, I think you can take down a guy like Jim Miller. I think you could standing back take a guy like Jim Miller. I think you could put Jim Miller in danger by clenching him along the fence line, forcing a grappling exchange by entering the legs. So I just think you look at a guy like Chase Hooper and he understands the modern meta of MMA grappling and he can do it really well. So he can scramble fast. He can come out on top. He can find good positions. He can enter on legs. He can do a lot of things well. And that's why he's a good fighter. And for a long time, you were getting him a plus 120 and plus 140 and plus 170 against guys that were not on his level. And now he's got a guy who was on his level, but is 41 years of age and is getting up there, right? Getting ready to go out to pasture with no disrespect intended, a absolute Northeast legend. And you'd have to just take your hat off to Jim Miller if he gets this win and say, hey, this old dog still got them tricks, right? But when it comes down to it, ABCs, they always bet on cardio. And the guy who's got consistently better cardio here is Chase Hooper. You look at Joe Solecki, guys, in 2021, Joe Solecki was able to defeat this man by riding out a decision, by taking his back, by taking him down in rounds 2 and 3. And by the way, guys, Joe Solecki guard pulled, I'm pretty sure, in the first round, right? He basically just said, I am willing to say, you've got this one, and I'll get the next two because I know my cardio is going to stand up better. And by the way, as far as I see it, no disrespect again, I think that Joe Solecki is a much inferior analog of Chase Hooper. He's got the good grappling and none of the other ancillary skills that make Chase Hooper special, which is the pace, which is the violent ground and pound, which is the willingness to mix it up in all positions and continue scrambles. You like to see a Solecki hold on, hold the back. He's very static. Everything is high tension. That's exhausting. Chase Hooper is, I don't even need to grip it. I'll hold on with my feet. I'll punch with my hands. I'll move around. If I fall off, it's all good because I'll get right back on top. Tatsuro Taira falls into the full guard, and then he sweeps back to your back. That's what the new modern grappling meta is. Flexible guys that have the ability to attack from all different positions, guys that can be dangerous from everywhere. And I think that's what Chase Hooper is. So shout out to Jim Miller. He's one of the OGs, one of the originals, one of the coolest guys in the game. I just think time waits for nobody, and I think Chase Hooper's time is now. So he's chasing the dream this weekend, and I think he's going to do it in round 2 and 3.
Yeah, you summed it up perfectly there. I think just the speed on the Chase Hooper side is going to be troublesome for Jim Miller, who at this point at 41, sure does carry some knockout power, but I think the speed is the issue. Time and time again, we've seen him just get touched up by jabs, and the reach advantage is not doing him no favors here, let alone the height disadvantage that he's going to be at. It's going to be horrible in terms of landing the shots that he wants to land on the feet to effectively build on his momentum. I talked about this on multiple shows. When you're punching up, you're losing a couple of inches of reach rather than punching straight forward. Someone who's the same height as you, or maybe just only an inch or two taller. But when you're looking at something like 4 or 5 inches, it's tough. But yeah, I think Chase Hooper is probably going to get this done via sub. It's not a shocker. But I just on the mat, sure, Jim Miller is a credentialed black belt, but I just think I believe, Liam, you mentioned this on one of your shows. The speed, I agree with your point here. The speed at which Chase Hooper recognizes the next step. Like, he kind of sees 2-3 steps ahead when you're still trying to figure out how do you get out of this leg entanglement. And sooner than you know it, you're already getting choked out. So for me, I just think Chase Hooper is going to be able to get this done. I think he's going to be able to jab at range and just, play it safe until he lands the takedown and then submits Jim Miller. So, yeah, I agree. Round 2 submission is where I'm thinking this is going to be at, but I wouldn't be surprised if he goes for ground and pound. Just depends on what position they landed.
Yeah, I have a gross feeling that it's going to look like ground and pound, and then Jim's going to turn away or something. He's going to get the choke.
Don't tell me.
And I only say that just because, if you think back, like, Chase is a guy that looks for a lot of ground and pound, but also I feel like he's like a true martial artist. I feel like he's a true martial arts fan. And if Jim shows him the back, man, I feel like he's going to take the choke out of respect, claiming one for jiu-jitsu like my guy Gerald Mearshart. But that's just a gut instinct. I think that the pricing.
Let's not remember Gerald Mearshart.
KO. Yeah, exactly. Hey, a hero once been. Oh, I love it. All right, brother. Next up, we've got Virna Jandiroba taking on Xiaonan. And, I'll let you lead us off on this one, my man. We got a women's strawweight title eliminator, I would call this. What do you feel about this one?
Yeah, now this might be one where we might be able to bring one home for jiu-jitsu. Nonetheless, we're talking about Xiaonan versus Virna Jandiroba here. What Jan presents to the table is a really solid striking attack where her footwork is on point. She's really fast and snappy, getting up there in age, but so is Virna. Her biggest deficiency is the ground game, and we've seen it time and time again. I think the biggest performance question mark that I've seen was if Mackenzie Dern is landing takedowns against you consistently, it's an issue. And I'm not talking about Mackenzie Dern's grappling. I'm talking about her takedown solely. She's never been known to take girls down successfully. She's gone as far as just jumping on girls and pulling guard and trying to lean back to fall onto the mat to get this fight to her realm in the past. That's how inefficient her takedown offense is. And she was able to take down Jan multiple times throughout the fight. And then with someone like Virna, what I like about her grappling and wrestling game is that she tangles the legs immediately. And that's something that's going to be very effective against Jan. But where I think she may struggle here is that this is obviously a pay-per-view. It's a big cage. So Jan's overall footwork and movement may frustrate Virna in the opening round. But I think once she's able to land, if she's able to land first takedown, she cruises from there. I think the level in the jiu-jitsu is just too much to overlook here. And I think Virna runs away with this fight once this fight hits the mat. It could be submission. It could be just a 3-round dominant decision. But I think on the feet, Virna's able to, stay safe. And once she's able to get into her realm, she really dominates, and girls don't really tend to get up from her control. And it's only because she's able to tangle up the limbs. She's excellent at tangling up the legs, and that's the first part that you're going to use to build up a base. So for me, I think it's Virna and Virna all the way, but I'm kind of getting scared off of it because I see a lot of people on the Virna side as well, and the line just keeps going in the opposite direction. But waiting to see where this line settles, and then we'll make my mind up from there. What do you think, Liam?
I'm going to tend to agree with you, man. My guy Monotone in the chat says he played Jan KO only -380. That's funny. I get where you're coming from there. I definitely don't see Virna winning this fight by KO or TKO. But I will say I think Virna gets the job done here. This is a tricky fight. I think when you want to give credit to Xiaonan, you say, you look at the evolution from that Carla Esparza fight to where she's at today. She's clearly gotten so much better. She went from armbarring herself to, looking competent enough against Xiangwei Li. But ultimately, she had a lot of things go right for her in that fight and lost the fight. I thought she was going to compete better than she did. That's the truth. She got bailed out by a submission attempt early. Probably was out, I honestly thought at the time, like, it was questionable, but going back and watching with the benefit of time and hindsight, I think she was out. So she got fortunate there, like, wake her back up, bring her back. It shows that she's tough. She's about that life, right? Wake her up. She's still ready to go out and fight again. But she is the kind of woman that, we've seen be put in bad positions on the ground, period, point blank, by a number of opponents. And I think Mackenzie Dern has been like a career letdown, right? Like, there's been a number of times she was put in main events, had finishes on silver platters and just fumbled them, right? Like, the Angela Hill fight comes to mind. The Xiaonan fight comes to mind. The Marina Rodriguez fight comes to mind. Like, has the positions that you think she wants, needs to finish the fight, doesn't get it done, doesn't finish the fight. So that's a problem, right? On the other side, you say, okay, Xiaonan, last time out, what does that Tabitha Ricci fight tell us? Nothing, as far as I'm concerned, right? And it told me she looked great, right? She looked confident. She looked loose. Her striking looks as good as ever. I always thought she was a great striker. I thought she was one of the best strikers in the division, period. But now it's striker versus grappler, right? That's the dynamic that we're dealing with. And I think when you look at Virna Jandiroba, one thing I always try and figure out is commonalities between opponents, right? Like, who has beaten you before? I talked about before, the guys that have knocked out Darren Elkins, like, every one of them is like guys that were perennial top 5, top 10 featherweights in their time that either contended for titles or were in title eliminators. Like, they were really serious fighters. It was not just any Tom, Dick, and Harry knocking out Darren Elkins, period. Virna Jandiroba's last 3 fights in her career, every one of them was to a better wrestler or grappler, somebody of at least equal skills in those positions, right? Amanda Hebas, very, very credentialed judo player, very, very credentialed jiu-jitsu. Tough matchup for her, right? Very close fight. Won it with the striking, right? Used her ability to jab, used her ability to move, used her lateral footwork. That's how she won the fight. But also, Virna had to mind her P's and Q's, right? No free grappling against a grappler of that quality. Then you look at, the other times that we've seen her get bested, right? Mackenzie Dern, another example. So you look at Virna when she loses, it's better wrestlers, better grapplers, people that have the ability to dictate where the fight takes place. And on the other side, Xiaonan, she's given up 2 or more takedowns to 5 different UFC opponents. That's a problem, right? And last time out, Tabitha Ricci attempted 3 takedowns in 15 minutes. That's like, if the game plan was not to go out there and wrestle Xiaonan, every person in her corner should just be fired, right? Like, it didn't make any sense. Everybody that watched that from the sidelines, like, why is she not trying to wrestle? Like, she had no chance to win that fight if it's a pure striking fight, right? But that's what she made it. So you go back and think to yourself, like, maybe you want to blame it on the footwork or whatever. Like, I would rather my athlete is taking shots from half a mile away than just losing the fight with not a chance to win, personally. But again, it wasn't a great look, right? I think more for Tabitha Ricci than it was like, Xiaonan is the greatest thing since sliced bread. I was like, yeah, that's a great performance. But really, Tabitha Ricci, kind of, we need to see where you're at next fight and see if you really want to do this, because that wasn't the optimal game plan. That's not how we're going to set ourselves up to succeed. Virna Jandiroba, I don't think has any illusions about, I got to go out here and show off my boxing. I got to go out here and show the improvements I made to my striking. She's going to go try to wrestle and grapple like her life depends on it, as far as I'm concerned. And the problem is, I just think she's too high level. I think when she gets this fight to the ground, I don't think there's anything Xiaonan is going to do to be able to keep up with her, because her transitions are better. Her decision-making is better. Her understanding is higher. So I don't think that you can bridge that gap by doing a couple of years of Team Alpha Male. If you can, I'll take my hat off to you and say, God bless you. But it just seems to me like Virna Jandiroba at 36 years of age, taking on a 35-year-old. It's not ancient, like no big age gap, right? Two older women in the division. They both know where their game is. They both know where their bread is buttered. And as far as I'm concerned, you got one girl who is just one of the best grapplers in the division, bar none, against one of the girls that's been exploited on the ground several times. And, she's got a lot to prove to me here. So I understand why Virna's favored. I think that she's going to get takedowns in this fight. And I think if she's getting them, there's a decent chance she submits her in the first 2 rounds. So that's the way I see it going down, man. I think Virna submits her. I think if she doesn't, it's going to be a grimy decision. Could go either way. The upside for Xiaonan, again, is that she does damage. She can bust you up with one big punch. She'll throw out more volume over 15. But if this fight is taking place in a wrestling and grappling context, I think Virna's skill and class will show. That's the way I see this one. How about you, man? Anything you wanted to add?
No, I think we broke this one down pretty clearly. I mean, it's a classic grappler versus striker matchup where the bigger cage just kind of, throw a wrench in plans here. But if this is at the apex, oh man, this may be close to max bet territory just due to how small the cage is. But can't go that big here.
I tweeted out a long time ago, Zhang Wei Li sees Virna Jandiroba in her nightmares. And I still think that that's true. I think that she's a very good grappler, but I think she's been using physicality to out-grapple a lot of women in this division. And I think when physicality meets world-class skill, I think that's when world-class skill typically comes out ahead. But we'll have to find out. So should be interesting. All right, guys, next up, we've got the prelim headliner, 50K, Dan Ige, back on the trot, one of the most active fighters in this featherweight division, taking on Sean Woodson, the sniper out of St. Louis, big guy, long for the division, 6'2", 78-inch reach. This is the biggest fighter that Dan Ige has ever fought in the UFC. He is no stranger to being the smaller man, but Sean Woodson is one of the biggest featherweights on the roster, period. So big fight for Dan Ige in many ways. This is kind of a make or break fight for his career. If he loses this fight, he will find himself on the outside of the top 15 looking in for the first time in a very long time. And on the other side, Sean Woodson earned a step up in competition, 4 straight wins since his last draw. But that draw did show some of the drawbacks, so to speak, to his game. The guy can be hit. He can be hurt. He can be put in danger. Luis Saldana did himself no favors in that fight. Several illegal moves, several boneheaded decisions that potentially cost him a win or a finish. The guy's had 2 wins outside the UFC since. So Saldana, not a bad fighter, right? But when you see Sean Woodson fight really good high-level fighters, it's often tough, right? It's split decision territory. It's close fights. And when he fights lower-end guys in the division, he tends to stunt on them, right? Use his footwork, use his elusive abilities, use the jab, the length, keep him at bay. I don't know if he's going to do that easily against Dan Ige. I think Dan Ige is not going to have very much respect for his power. I think he's going to walk forward and try to kill him. And I think he's going to have an ability to do that. Now, if this fight goes 15 minutes, I don't really like it for Dan Ige. I think it's going to be a tougher fight for him to win because I do think Woodson has a decent idea how he wins fights, moving backwards, throwing knees up the middle, throwing those kicks up the middle, throwing those, retreating boxing combinations. The guy kind of gets how he wins fights, but he's doing it by leveraging the judges, leveraging his footwork, using his length. And I think that all of it is because he does not want to get into close range exchanges. I think if he's in those exchanges in this fight, he will get hurt. I think we've seen him hurt before. I think we've seen guys pressure him successfully on a number of occasions. We saw Julian Erosa do it back in the day. He's the last man to finish Sean Woodson, and I believe the only man to finish Sean Woodson. But Saldana came very close. He did that with power. We saw Dennis Bazooka have some success on short notice against Woodson with pressure, right? Not very sophisticated pressure, just I don't have a game plan because I signed this fight like 3 days ago. Let's do it. Pressure. And, he was having some success, but then got out-grappled by Woodson. And I just don't see that happening to Dan Ige. Dan Ige is a guy that has good, well-rounded skills, right? Nobody's really punked Dan Ige in the wrestling and the grappling phase that isn't a top 5'10" guy. It's like that's just not happening. So he's a very good fighter, very well-rounded. And as far as I'm concerned, he's got a lot to fight for here. Sean Woodson, he's not been in a lot of these big moments, big opportunities. 3 times a year, Dan Ige is making that walk under the UFC banner. He's normally doing it against an absolute killer. And I think right now he's getting a little bit more confidence on the fact, like, this guy has not been in a fight with a guy like me. He's fighting these guys that are on new UFC contracts and, doing their best. But he's not been hit like I'm going to hit him. And I think that confidence shows in how Dan Ige presents himself. I think when you're looking for a short king on this card with a chance, I think Dan Ige is one of them, man. He comes out with aggression, with confidence. He hurts almost everybody that he gets in there with. And if he doesn't hurt you, he normally makes it an honest fight. He normally gets a couple of good shots back on you that gets respect from people on the feet. So almost every guy he fought, he took a round off. Whether it's Calvin Kattar, whether it's Lerone Murphy, you go through the list of names that he's fought, he's taken a round off almost everybody. Korean Zombie, all these guys. Like, yeah, he'll drop some fights, but he'll win some rounds. He'll make it honest. He'll make you compete. And if you're not careful, he'll put you on a body bag, right? Like, this guy has 50K in the moniker because he's putting guys on the highlight reel for a while now. So for me, I think Dan Ige is a live underdog in this spot. How do you feel about this one?
I've been going back and forth on this one for multiple reasons, because I can clearly see a path where Sean Woodson's length is just going to be too much for Dan Ige, and he's just going to be at puncher's range the whole fight, and then Woodson just wins a pretty tepid kickboxing rangy decision. And then I also see a path where Dan Ige gets up into Sean Woodson's chest and lands heavy bombs. And whether he finishes Woodson or whether he drops him in a round or just overall just lands him clean throughout the fight and wins a decision himself. So I've been flip-flopping back and forth, and I just don't really have the strongest read on this fight. Obviously, the 7-inch height and reach advantage play into Woodson's favor tremendously here. And if he's smart, especially in a big cage, you just want to skirt along the outside, land your jabs until you're able to take a step forward and, assert yourself in the pocket. Because if he lets Dan Ige take control from bell to bell, it's going to be a long night for Sean Woodson. You never want to be on the receiving end of that kind of pressure. And Dan Ige is one of the best at it. Let's not forget, not too long ago, Dan Ige stepped in on not even 24 hours notice against someone who's fighting for the title, this card, in Diego Lopes. And won the 3rd round, almost finished Diego Lopes in that 3rd round. So that's just something that I will never forget, and I'll hold in high regard for Dan Ige, because the dude is a dog, and he's come out there and shown it time and time again. So I won't ever doubt him. Respect his heart and his skill set. I think this is going to be a really fun fight to watch, but staying out of it completely in terms of the betting angle. But if gun was pointed to my head, I would say Sean Woodson by decision is the most likely outcome in this fight, as odds indicate, just due to the reach, man. I think the reach is just too much to overcome here with the big cage. So for me, it's Woodson by decision, but hell no, I'm not betting on that.
Fair play, man. Looking back, I just wanted to point out, against fighters where he was 4 inches shorter or more, these are the only names I'm bringing up right now are 4 inches of height or more that Dan Ige was shorter. He was 4 inches shorter than Danny Henry. He subbed him in the first. He was 4 inches shorter than Edson Barbosa, won a close decision. 4 inches shorter than Calvin Kattar, lost a 5-round decision. 4 inches shorter than Damon Jackson, brutally knocked him out. 4 inches shorter than Andre Fili, brutally knocked him out. So this is not a guy that is afraid of taller fighters. Like, that's just not something that he's going to be afraid of. That being said, he's got to get through the jab. So he's going to get jabbed plenty in this fight, I'm quite sure, unless and until he knocks him out. But I just think that Dan Ige, is there's one thing you know about him. He's pretty damn hard to kill. So this guy's going to come forward and try and put hands on Sean Woodson. And the other thing I will point out is we've seen Sean Woodson fold up the shop late in a fight where somebody was pressuring him all night. I believe, and this is from memory, he dropped Julian Erosa. Julian Erosa hits the ground, stands back up, and starts throwing again. And Sean Woodson was so tired he could do nothing about it. He was literally just like overwhelmed by enthusiasm and aggression. And I think that is, when you're looking for the marks of Dan Igue's game, that's what he does well. The other thing I wanted to point out, somebody said Dan Ige has passionate money line backers every time he's a dog. How have they not gone bankrupt yet? Let me find that comment. Cade Garrison in the chat. So that was funny, Cade. Shout out to you. I wanted to just say he's 4-7 as an underdog in the UFC for a minus 21.7% ROI. So that is a good note. However, who was he a dog against? He was a dog of plus 275 against Lerone Murphy, a dog of plus 250 against Diego Lopes on literally 24 hours notice, a plus 170 underdog against Bryce Mitchell. He was one mistake away from winning that fight. I'll have people know. You go back and look, plus 350 against Movsar Evloev. Movsar is one of the most difficult outs in the featherweight division right now, period. Plus 125 against Josh Emmett. I laid the price on Josh Emmett there, and I believe, he won it cleanly. But again, it's like he was closely lined with a lot of the top guys in the division. Plus 250 against Calvin Kattar. He's losing these fights, but again, he's winning rounds. He's competing, and these are guys that are all top 15. It's like Sean Woodson's trying to prove that he's that level. What's his best win in the UFC? Charles Jourdain, guy who fights at bantamweight. Yusuf Salah, a guy that was cut from the promotion and came back since he last beat him. It's like those are the kind of wins that he has that are like good wins, but close split decisions, right? The guys that he's clowned on are not high-level UFC fighters as far as I'm concerned. So just feels to me like competitive fight. Either guy could win it. And one guy's being given a lot of credit because he's long, big, awkward. And I think on the other side, Dan Ige is just in there with killers every time. So good shit. All right, man. Next up, main card kickoff. We got Nikita Krylov taking on Dominick Reyes. I believe Dominick Reyes is a California guy, Wiz. So maybe you got some insights. But how do you feel about this fight, man? Going down in the light heavyweight division, does the Dominick Reyes redemption tour continue? Or does the minor Nikita Krylov get back to his winning ways?
Man, this is a really exciting fight. And yeah, Dominick Reyes trains not too far away from here in Hesperia, which is about, honestly, an hour and a half to 2 hours away, depending on traffic. Never really ran into him here, so don't know much about him and his camp. But the one question mark here is the Krylov layoff. And a lot of it was surrounded by the shoulder injury that he had and shoulder surgery, which apparently is the worst injury to sustain in MMA. I don't believe so, but I do get the argument. Now, I just really believe in this, and that this fight depends on the condition of Nikita Krylov and how that injury affects him. And I think that's a very big question mark, which is why I likely will have no position on this fight, aside from method and round props. But if we get the same Nikita Krylov, I do think this fight's going to be violent. I think this fight does not make it past the round and a half, just due to the fact that both these guys tend to stand in each other's faces and they throw heavies. Dominick Reyes last time out, the name is slipping me here. Won via knockout. Was it Jacoby? No, it was Anthony Smith. It was Anthony Smith and Jacoby.
He knocked out Jacoby and Smith.
Yeah. So the Anthony Smith fight, sure, he was landing, but Smith was also landing a few shots of his own. As so with Jacoby as well. And I do think that Nikita Krylov is going to be able to land clean here. How is Dominick Reyes' chin going to hold up? But also, how is Nikita Krylov's chin going to hold up? Because his chin for the longest time has been regarded as one of the best chins in the light heavyweight division. But removed from a 2-year layoff, injury, how serious has his training been? And then on top of that, pairing it with the fact that Reyes is coming off of 2 knockout wins, he may feel a little bit confident. And at light heavyweight, all it takes is one to spark you. So I think the best way to play this fight is just like the KO props on both fighters. To see what that is right now on BetOnline, we're looking at, I believe it's plus 275 for Nikita Krylov by KO, plus 240 right now, actually, just moved. And then Dominick Reyes by KO plus 375. I think you're getting an honest number on both those sides where sure, Nikita Krylov can take this fight down and he can find a submission, but I think more often than not, this fight stays on the feet and plays out on the feet, and one guy is going to get finished. So for me, I think fight ends by KO is a good look, or just playing the KO number on either side. But yeah, I think more times than not, if Krylov has not regressed in his game and does not really show any ring rust, I think he gets this done inside the distance. So for me, I got to side with Krylov, but going nowhere near the money line at these prices, given the circumstances.
Yeah, I would get Krylov if he was a dog, coming off a pretty long layoff here. And for me, shoulder, like I'll just tell you, man, I have gotten repeated stress injuries from doing guillotines too much. So if you're ever looking for an insight into my grappling game, I definitely love the guillotine, but I used to do it too much. Like I would literally hit it so often that I hurt my shoulder. And when you think about how debilitating it is, I could just say like it makes it so I can't train hardly. If I like bust up my shoulder, I have to like give myself time to let my shoulder come back. Otherwise, it's like it feels like I'm just like scraping against like like it's like thinning my ligaments, and it just feels absolutely horrible. And when you think about a big surgical repair, a guy that's been out for so long, I think that it's in part a reflection of he didn't feel good enough to come back. And I think now he feels like maybe I need some money, like maybe it's time to shit or get off the pot and find out what I can do. But for me, I definitely like to see at least one fight where Nikita Krylov looks good before I'm like, yeah, take 2 years off, go under the knife, whatever you need to do, man. Come back when you're ready. Like for me, Dominick Reyes has been in the cage, been getting wins, and confidence for me is something that's huge, right? Momentum is huge. I like those things for a fighter. And now you had a guy in Dominick Reyes who I felt like his confidence was shattered, right? He basically was at an all-time high. And then I sold his stock. I bet Jan Blachowicz. I was like, yeah, I thought he looked good against Jon Jones too. But like, what is Jan Blachowicz not going to try hard because he looked good against Jon Jones? He's going to try and kick him. He's going to try and punch him. He's going to try and beat him up. And he did, right? He hurt him really bad in that fight. And we saw Dom, kind of come back, and he never could recapture that same magic. I mean, he was very close to beating Yuri. I think people forget how close he came to finishing that fight. He came back from death's door in that fight. He got hurt. He found a way back in. He almost got the guillotine. Yuri was literally knocked unconscious in that fight by his own admission. He was out. And then Dom looked for a guillotine, woke him back up. He ends up finishing the fight. Like, hey, hats off to him, man. Yuri's a tough son of a bitch, but that knockout was harrowing, right? You definitely have to say, like, this guy's taking a lot of damage. He's a big tree, man. When a big tree gets hit, it falls over in slow motion, dude. That was crazy, right? He's been on the wrong end of some bad ones. Dude, Ryan Spann, who's frankly not on his level, put him on a very bad highlight, and it's because his confidence was low and his chin is there for the taking sometimes, It's a light heavyweight fight. You get touched on the chin by a big 205-pound man, shit could go sideways. So for me, Dom Reyes, the days of like ever looking at him as a favorite, they're over, right? Because he could get touched on the chin. He is a confidence and momentum fighter. You could take his confidence and momentum in a fight. I thought Jan Blachowicz just took the confidence and momentum from him with constant body kicks. Hey, every time you try and take a deep breath, I'm going to touch you again. I'm going to go upstairs and touch you while you're trying to guard, right? If you start guarding, I'm kicking the body. If you stop guarding and bring him low, I'm coming upstairs with big hooks. He made him second guess every decision that he made all night. That's the kind of thing you could do to break this guy. But I think Nikita Krylov, at the best of times, is an inconsistent fighter. Like, I think he's got good upside. He's a dangerous guy. He's got skills. He's got abilities. But you go back and watch the Johnny Walker fight. It's disgusting MMA. They both look like complete amateurs. No disrespect, but it's like, that's what it looked like. It looked like two drunks rolling around outside of a bar. Like, it did not look like high-level mixed martial arts. And I know that Krylov has real skills, right? He's got a submission game. The guy's kickboxing at its best is very good. He's flexible. He's dangerous. But I think he's there to get hit on the comeback. Like, he's just always had good durability, good recoverability. He's a tough bastard. So I don't think it's ever cost him too bad, the fact that he gets hit pretty cleanly on the return. But I do think he's there to be hit on the return. I think that when you look at the Ed Herman fight, like even that fight, he he kicked his head off, right? It's one of my favorite knockouts of all time. One of the most forgotten knockouts. He head kicked him into the third row. It was crazy. But he was getting touched a little by Ed Herman. And Ed Herman is like on the back end of his career at that point, like barely hanging on to a contract. So I think that Nikita Krylov, good fighter, but I don't know where he's at. And I ain't trusting hardly anybody in the light heavyweight division at minus 200 unless you've got clear skill gaps everywhere. And like the thing about Reyes for me is he's a well-rounded fighter. His jiu-jitsu is not bad. It's not his go-to. It's not his bread and butter, but it's pretty solid. His wrestling, it's not great, but is he just going to get easily out-wrestled here? I honestly don't see that. I feel like he'd work back up to his feet. So for me, it's like if this fight is a striking-based fight, it doesn't feel like Dominick Reyes should be a favorite, but it does feel like it should be closer to 50-50 for me because I just think Dominick Reyes hits hard, has the confidence, has the momentum, been in there, been active, and right now, he's feeling himself. And on the other side, Nikita Krylov's like, roll out my shoulders, see how it goes. Maybe I could still do this for a living. Like, it just doesn't feel like a bullish signal for me. So, yeah, we'll see how he looks this weekend. And I'll be willing to say, hey, humble pie. Like, Nikita Krylov, fuck a shoulder surgery. This guy looks as good as ever. But for me right now, like Dominick Reyes, who was the better fighter at their best based on what they've shown? I mean, Dominick Reyes arguably beat John Jones, who's the best fighter that we've ever fucking seen. And Nikita Krylov is going life and death with Paul Craig and finding a way to lose the fight that he clearly was the better fighter in. So it's like that for me is just a little bit different. Not an easy fight to call, but this is one where it feels like a live underdog to me.
Agreed.
My man. All right, next up, we've got the battle for good and evil, if you believe the press conferences, right? We've got Bryce Mitchell, coming off some ignorant comments. I'll just, give my own 2 cents there, right? A little editorializing for me, but I don't think Bryce Mitchell is a very cogent political thinker, let's say. I think what he does bring to the table is he's a good, workman-like fighter who understands where he's good, goes for takedowns, looks to bring people to the mat, looks to hold them down, looks to pass the guard. Do I think he's the best top player? No, I think he's pretty decent at pinning for MMA, which is like good skill if you can get it, right? Like hold people down. He's pretty good at that. Pretty good at making people carry some weight. I thought he was going life and death with Dan Ige, though. Like if we're going back a couple fights, right? I think that when you look at how his results have run out, he's won some split decisions. He's been in some close ones that he got over the edge, and he's holding up the Bible like, thank you. Like he barely made it across the finish line. Like, thank you. But my man has just been putting himself, in some tough fights. And now, he put himself in a tough situation where I don't think that the promotion dislikes Bryce Mitchell. That's the truth. I think they kind of like the guy. He's got a big following. He's an interesting character. You put a camera on him, he'll say something interesting. Could be stupid. It'll be interesting. So they like Bryce Mitchell. I think they like having him on television. But he kind of shot himself in the foot with that commentary, right? And what did Dana say when he went to that press conference? He said, luckily, we're in this business where if you don't like something that somebody said, you could root for them to get knocked out in their next fight. And then you have an audition, so to speak, right? Lord John Silva, he goes out there, he gets a brutal knockout. And what's the first thing on his mind, on his lips? He says, give me Bryce Mitchell, and I will do the job, boss. He basically said, draft me. I'm ready. Put me in, coach. I'm ready to play. He wanted this opportunity. And I think that, I understand where people are coming from with the Bryce Mitchell dog shots, right? Especially early in the week, 300s or something. It's like, of course, I definitely get that side. Like he's got wrestling upside, grappling upside, dangerous fighter. You got to respect the skills. Even on the feet, was not getting punked by Ilia Topuria for the first 2.5 minutes, right? He was trying to throw the jab. He was trying to stick in there. But eventually, it was the summation of damage. It was the fact that he wasted some energy on a takedown that was going nowhere. A couple things didn't work out for him that night. But here's the thing that I don't like about Bryce, right? Because I gave the credit where it's due. The skills are there, right? He's got good skills. But you look back at that Ilia fight, and he lost the fight. And afterwards, he was like, I got to retire. Like he basically was like, I just shouldn't do this anymore. And then he said I was sick, and then he said all these different things. But like he basically said, like, I just got found out. Like I shouldn't do this shit no more. I'd rather live on my farm and just go fuck off. Like then he comes back, right? Gets back in the win column, like finds a way to win. And then it's the Josh Emmett fight, right? Which is literally maybe the worst knockout in UFC history. Gets knocked out, twitching on the canvas for minutes, but like that, I'm saying bad. Revisit it. It's even worse. It's worse than you remember. It was bad on the night. It's worse on rewatch. It was horrible to look at, right? So then the UFC was like, we don't even know if this guy's all right. Like, let's see if he can go out there and beat Kron Gracie. And honestly, I truly believe that fight was an indictment of Kron Gracie. No disrespect, but like that didn't look like a professional level fighter in any way, in any phase. His jiu-jitsu didn't look good. Like nothing about it looked good. He looked unprepared. He looked uninterested. It was shameful, right? It just was a sad way to go out. So we wish him the best, right? Gracie family, nothing but love and respect. I'm the Team Renzo Gracie guy, but that was just a horrible look. I don't think anybody would disagree. Then you look at how Bryce looked in that fight. He looked okay, but I just didn't come away from that sold like, oh my God, Bryce Mitchell's so back. Like I just thought right night, right opponent, did his job. Hats off to him. This is where the rubber meets the road for me, right? Like if you're getting taken down by Charles Jourdain, people are saying like, man, he's getting taken down. Like it's all over for him. And I'm just saying every fight is different, right? Sometimes you come out there and know like the floor is lava. If this guy takes me down, it could be a wrap, right? And then everything is prioritizing, do not get taken down. Other times you're like, if this guy takes me down, I'm just getting right back up to my feet. I don't even care if this guy takes me down. Like, please waste your energy trying to take me down. So Charles Jourdain, who never wrestles, you're a wrestler now, right? To quote Nate Diaz, he's trying to take him down over and over, right? Just like Victor Henry was against Charles Jourdain. Why? When you start getting touched up on the feet, you're like, what are my alternatives? I got to do something else, right? I can't just keep standing here getting punched. I got to mix it up. I got to try a different phase. I think that when you look at how that fight was going, Gene Silva's touching him on the feet. So he's like, fuck this. Let me mix it up. Let me try and grapple him. See how that works. It didn't work. What ended up happening? If you remember, Chael Sonnen has talked about this phenomena before, but I think it's important to revisit for this. If my two hands are on your one leg, I have no defense. So when people wrestle to single legs in MMA, one of the problems that they tend to run into is they are no longer protecting their head in any way, right? My head is just exposed. You can elbow the side of my head. You can push off. You can frame. You can punch. My head's just an open target, right? So that's why a lot of guys wrestle with their head all the way underneath. They try and bury their head. They try and put it out of the way so you can't hit them, so you can't hurt them. And I think Gene Silva, when you talk about his skills, fundamental MMA skills, one of the best things he does is frames, right? So if you're not a jiu-jitsu guy, no problem. A frame is something that you put in between you and your opponent so they can't get closer, right? And this guy will frame on your face, take a big hand, place it on the side of your face so that way you can't get closer to him and get good head position. He starts pushing you away. Now I have enough space to fill with this uppercut. And he does it as good as anybody in the UFC as far as I'm concerned. So when you look at what Gene Silva does really well, he frames off uppercuts beautifully. He's got dynamic striking at distance. He reads situations well. And he ain't afraid to fight at all. So when I look at this fight, I say, the reason the UFC booked this, as I understand it, is they would like to see Bryce Mitchell get his just desserts so they can say, hey, forget about those comments, right, guys? It's all good. And then they can ride off into the sunset with Gene Silva's a new star. The alternative is Bryce Mitchell goes out there, gets a win, gets to go on the mic, have a viral moment, right? Whatever he says, it'll be a viral moment, right? For good or for ill. And then, we deal with the consequences, right? If we need to draft the next scariest guy, but maybe we call Ilya back up, beat him up again. It's like these kind of things where I think the UFC has a clear plan, but the plans don't always work out, right? So can Bryce Mitchell go upset the apple cart with his wrestling, with his grappling? Yes. But do I see it happening? No. I think John Silva is going to knock this guy out. I think he's going to frame him off for an uppercut and send him into the shadow realm. That's the way I see it going. How about you, Wiz?
Yeah, I mean, we all know what Bryce Mitchell's good at and what he presents to the table is the wrestling and the grappling and mainly a control-based wrestling attack. And he's a sticky motherfucker. Like when he gets you down, so it's pretty hard to build your base back up, and he just tends to tie you up and keep you there. And then on the Gene Silva side, just a very aggressive, fast starter in the striking realm. And you kind of stole the bit there with the uppercut framing, because that's the one thing here that I think is going to cause a lot of trouble for Mitchell too. Those uppercuts down the middle are going to fend off takedowns quite a bit. And I think just the sheer athleticism from the Gene Silva side is he's going to be able to almost buck Bryce Mitchell off of him if he's on the mat. And then as he's shooting these takedowns, I just think he's going to be the stronger fighter here. Now, I do see a world where Bryce Mitchell can win a decision here, so I'm not going to be ruling that out at all. We also have not seen Gene Silva too much in terms of him off of his back. I just don't think this is the spot that we will get the chance to see it, especially in a bigger cage where Gene's going to be able to move around a little bit more freely and use the cage to his advantage. I just think that he's going to be the one pressuring Bryce. Bryce is going to be on the back foot, and wrestling off the back foot is just a lot more tough than wrestling when you're on the front foot and you're the one pressuring and you're not against the cage. So I think Gene Silva at some point here is going to land a finish, probably in the first or second round. Not a surprising thing or a shock. But yeah, the line movement has been one way this week. It climbed up all the way to, I believe, minus 460 or 470 for Gene Silva before it crashed all the way down to minus 200, which is where it's at right now on BetOnline. I do think this fight ends one way or another. So if you don't want to pick a side, you can go with the under 2.5, and that is currently minus 135. So not a bad look at all, but I do think it's Gene Silva here.
Me too. I have no action on the fight. Definitely wouldn't lay the big chalk price on Gene, but I would prefer having, I think, the under than having Gene on the money line here, just because I feel like a lot of him winning and looking like a big favorite, in my opinion, is wrapped up in him knocking out Bryce Mitchell, because otherwise it's going to be a greasier fight. All right, man. We can move along to the next one. Fascinating fight. We've got the debut of Patricio Pitbull taking on Yair Rodriguez, and Yair Rodriguez may be looking past his opponent this weekend. You know, talking about Diego Lopes. Every interview and opportunity, I haven't heard him say nary two words about Patricio Pitbull this week, but you know, Pitbull, obviously a ton of success outside the UFC, maybe getting him a little bit past that sell-by date. Unfortunately, on the Yair Rodriguez side, be coming off a 2-fight skid, but because he has a big fan base, because he's got a certain amount of appeal, because he's fought in big fights and big opportunities, interim titles and all those things, you know, I think he gets a little bit of a longer leash than some other guys. But fascinating fight, my man. We'll kick it to you first. How do you feel about this one, Wiz?
I've personally been, you know, up and down on Yair Rodriguez throughout his UFC career, and I've never been the biggest fan, but also he does bring an exciting style to the cage. Obviously, his one weakness is going to be in the wrestling and the grappling, which we've seen people take advantage time and time again here. But I do like that he has the measurables advantage here for 5 inches in height, and then that's, if I'm doing math correctly, 5.5 inches of reach. The one thing I don't like for Pitbull here, and I've never liked throughout his career, is him at featherweight. I think he's just a little bit too undersized compared to the rest of the guys in the division. And he's no spry chicken. He's 37 years old for a featherweight. Doesn't need to cut too much weight, obviously. This guy at a point weighed in at 125. So has fought in 3 different divisions. And those weight cuts do catch up to you as you get older. Now, in terms of just stylistic matchup, I think that if Pitbull wanted, he can land takedowns in this fight. Do I think he will go for them? I really don't think so. I think this is going to be a stand-up affair for 3 rounds where Yair Rodriguez might be landing the bigger shots and the more flashy stuff. But Pitbull's pressure and methodic striking is something that I do like against fighters of Yair's style, just because no matter how big of a shot that gets landed, you just stay very stoic and you just follow the basics. And what Patricio Pitbull does well is just the basics, the meat and potatoes. He's able to land strikes at all 3 levels. Good solid leg kicking game, which has troubled the Yair in the past. But the one thing with Pitbull is we've seen him get sparked and hurt in a couple of his fights more recently as he's gone up in age. So that is a huge factor here with Yair. But I just don't like the interviews from Yair's side either. The fact that he's almost overlooking Pitbull. He's talking about the inevitable fight with Diego Lopes and just the whole drama behind that. I just don't like that for any fighter going into one of the biggest fights of their career. So yeah, I personally lean the Pitbull side. I think it's dog or pass. Is he going to get it done? Remains to be a question mark in my brain, because a lot of the times when these huge Bellator stars that move over to the UFC and at this older age, they don't tend to pan out. Exhibit A, Michael Chandler. Let's not forget about him, who also has fought Pitbull. Apparently, let's not even get into that. But I do think it's dog or pass, but more along the side of pass here. I just can't overlook the recent durability issues for Pitbull, along with the size discrepancy here. So for me, it's a pass altogether. Not the clearest read.
Yeah, fair play, man. I think that this is like a fight where, we're definitely making some guesses and some assumptions, right? Patricio Pitbull, been all over the place in terms of weight. To your point, he went as low as 135 at one point. I thought that was a huge mistake. It did not work out for him. But he's also fought at 155, right? And had success, knocked out Michael Chandler in the first round at 155 pounds. Maybe a premature stoppage, but he hurt him very bad. There's no doubt about that. So when you look at Patricio Pitbull, power in the hands, knows how to fight, very well-rounded, very experienced. I think that the danger for him when you're looking at like analogs, I think that the Suzuki fight and the AJ McKee fight show that young guys that are fast, dynamic, and really aggressive can get to him, right? Like you could hurt him on the feet. We saw that with Suzuki. I believe that Suzuki's a little bit bigger than him, but not a world beater, right? A guy that's lost some fights as well. And then you look at the fight with AJ McKee. I think McKee is very solid, like one of the best featherweights outside the UFC, I would say, probably top 5 guys outside the UFC in this division. And when you look at how that fight played out, obviously Pitbull was able to flip the script on him in a close one. But also we know that Pitbull kind of got buzzed, right? He got hurt in that fight and got caught in a bad position. McKee is really, really dangerous with that front choke series. And we've seen that, right? The McKee I believe he submitted Darren Caldwell with that. Like the guy is skilled. I think Yair Rodriguez is a very dangerous fighter on the feet. I think on the ground, he's a gimmicky fighter. He's not a bad fighter, but he's a little gimmicky. The lock that he hit against Brian Ortega, I thought he deserved credit for going for a submission, right? Like everybody after that fight was like, Brian got hurt. And I was like, man, if I was at a grappling tournament and I went for an arm lock and you hurt your arm, they're not going to be like, hey, man, he got hurt. Like they're going to be like, hey, man, nice submission, right? It's like, I just felt like that was a little bit of a disconnect in the average consumer's mind. Yair goes for an arm lock. Brian Ortega tries to pull his arm out, hurts his shoulder, and then it's Brian. Oh, woe is Brian, but not any credit to Yair. But then you look at the betting lines, right? They go to do it again, and the line's completely flipped. I bet Yair the first time plus 145, and I was like, man, I thought he was doing well on the feet. I thought that we had no idea how the fight was going to play out, but I was happy with the bet. And people gave me shit when I placed that bet. Then he's plus 148. I'm talking about Brian Ortega when they rematch. I'm like, for me, this was a coin flip last time. I don't know what's changed to make it not a coin flip this time. I was like, let's run it again. Brian Ortega jumps in the air, freaking rolls his ankle. Dude, I wanted to puke in my hands. I have 3 units on Brian Ortega plus 148. And I see him visibly roll his ankle before the fight. I was like, oh, great. This is going to be an awesome way to lose a bet. He gets battered in the first round. And then Yair completely falls apart, as he's wont to do. And for me, shows that he's not making the massive improvements you'd expect from this guy over time. He's still 32 years of age, right? He's a young enough guy. He's been around for a long enough time to have made some huge improvements. And if anything, I would argue he's slightly regressed, This guy turns a lot of people into wrestlers. I will say that. He's dangerous enough on the feet that Max Holloway was like, fuck it, let's wrestle. He's like, I think I'd rather be on top position than trading baseball bats with this guy anymore, right? But if you go and force Yair into a wrestling-based contest, whether you're Frankie Edgar fucking 7 years ago or Brian Ortega last fight, you're going to win. So it's like that's a winnable strategy for you, right? And you look at Patricio Pitbull. Does he have submission wins against good fighters? Yeah, he does. Does he also have the ability to beat people up on the ground? Yeah. So as far as I'm concerned, man, it's not an easy fight. The UFC basically said, like, yo, you want to be in the hardest promotion? You're going to go out and find out where you stand up right now. But for me, man, like if this fight plays out on the feet, I don't think Pitbull is dead letter. I think he's going to be having a tough night because of the speed, the dynamism, the kicks, the range of Yair. But what did we see Josh Emmett do to Yair in the first round? Hurt him badly, right? He got in there, touched him with the power. Patricio's got power. So if he touches you with that power, he can hurt you. If he mixes in the wrestling, I think he can win a decision. He can grind this guy out. If he doesn't mix in the wrestling at all, and Yair, for whatever reason, puts his head in a bad position, dude, Patricio is the kind of guy that will guard, pull a guillotine, and finish you. So I just think that this guy's dangerous in a couple different ways. I think he could win a decision if it gets there. So for me, it's a dog or pass situation, man. Like I just think Pitbull got a little bit more tools to mix it up. If he was the younger guy and, if he was the bigger guy, you wouldn't be getting the plus money, right? There are some things that you're giving up here, but I feel like you're getting the more experienced, mature, smart fighter at a good price. So that's the way I see this one, man. Anything you want to add, or should we move on to the next one?
It's, I came into the week pretty convinced on the Pitbull side, just pre-tape, just due to the skill set he presents to the table. And sure, he doesn't go for takedowns all that often. But the one thing I will credit him to be is a smart fighter. But then on the other hand, upon rewatching tape and seeing him get hurt in his past few fights, it's, not the easiest thing to see. But again, you're backing him at a plus 170 price tag. You may have to overlook some of those things. But yeah, at this point, no longer getting involved.
Fair play, my man. Wanted to say shout out to our guy Half the Battle, says smash the like button, gentlemen. Absolutely. Had a big 3 panel this week over on Half the Battle. 7,000 subscribers for our guy, Dan Levy. So make sure that if you're not one of them, I'm sure that you are, but go ahead and get subscribed. Show some love to our guy, Dan Levy at Half the Battle. One of the sharpest guys in the space. Been doing it for a long time. An OG of the community. And I hope that you guys will do the same here. Smash the like button. Make sure that you get subscribed. If you're new here, we do this each and every week, talking about the fights, trying to give you guys an idea of how to bet on the fights, where we're coming at these fights from a prediction standpoint as well. And you guys are adults. You make your own decisions, but we always try and put you in a position to succeed. God bless, good luck, and enjoy the fights each and every week. So with that being said, guys, let's move on to this co-main event of the evening. We got Michael Chandler, Iron Michael Chandler, 2-4, staring down the barrel of a negative record in the UFC. He's got to start winning some fights if he wants to change that. On the other side, Paddy Pimblett coming up aces more often than not. But problem is, now he's taking a step up in competition. Right now, he's going to find out where that rubber meets the road. Guy that has had a lot of success, but certainly has had his critics as well. We know that he barely won that Jared Gordon fight. Many people, myself included, thought he didn't win that Jared Gordon fight on the night, but it was a close fight. It wasn't a blowout, right? It was a fight where it was probably close but clear, Jared, right? And Paddy gets the nod, right? That's the benefit of being a promotional darling. But when you look at where we're at, I thought Paddy looked sensational in his last fight, just to tell you the truth. Like, I thought his sequencing was beautiful, right? Go to the guard pull. As he guard pulls, he's blocking off the arm. He's right into a triangle setup. If you go to a triangle in modern MMA, somebody might pick you up, slam you on your head. So he goes to the triangle armbar series. When you see Bobby Green, King Green, try and stand up out of it, he's scooping the leg. He's getting him off balance. He's threatening with that armbar. So that way you cannot try and just stand up out of it. I thought a lot of things were done well. In order to submit somebody, it's normally a lot of small things done well. And that's what we saw from Paddy in that fight. Bobby Green is not an easy guy to submit. You can go through the body of work he's put together over the course of a lengthy UFC career. It was a impressive and, dare I say, sensational performance. Now, on the other side of that equation, was there some fortune to it? Yeah, I've always said it's better to be lucky than good. He kicked his leg out from under him. Bobby Green starts falling into a takedown attempt. Can't ask for much more than Paddy Pimblett there, right? It's his move, right? It's his offense that set up that failed takedown attempt. He kicked his leg out from under him. That your options are either like hit the deck or attempt a takedown in that moment. But it did seem to me like it was a fortuitous outcome in some ways. Like that could have been a harder fight on rerun if he didn't get that early submission. But all you can judge is the tape that somebody put together, right? I think people are really, really hard on Paddy Pimblett for the Tony Ferguson fight. And do I understand why? Like, yeah, is it a great look to be tired in round 3 and letting Tony start to rally on you a little bit? No. But Mike Tyson used to say you can fight for the knockout or you can fight for the decision. And I can tell you, as a Paddy KO1 backer, I thought we had it. I had Paddy KO1 in that fight at a big number, like 11-1 or whatever it was. And he absolutely beat the shit out of Tony Ferguson for 5 minutes, spent all of his energy doing it. And then he's still got 10 minutes left out there. So, I feel like we saw Paddy have to deal with some adversity in that one. When I look at this fight, I see clear pass for Michael Chandler. Like, he's got absolute thunder in his hands. He's got knockout ability. He can wrestle. He's not an easy guy to out-wrestle. But when I'm looking at what could go wrong, I think his chin is a liability at this point in his career. At the best of times, guys, his chin wasn't that good. He's been in wars. He's been durable. I'm not saying he's not durable, but he gets buzzed frequently, right? Like, you can just go through his Bellator days, man. He was getting buzzed a lot. Bro, he got hit by Will Brooks and started having a conversation with people that aren't there, right? Will Brooks hit him with a punch. People forget this. I've been an MMA fan for a long time, dude. Michael Chandler got hit with like a 2-piece combination, and he starts having a conversation with somebody who's like outside the cage. He was lights on, nobody's home, right? My man was off in the distance just talking to shadows. Horrible look. Again, these are old fights, but I bring it up to just say there's been these times that we've seen Michael Chandler gets hurt. He got hurt by Brent Primus throwing leg kicks, right? Brent Primus throws a couple leg kicks at him. My man experiences leg drop. Everything starts falling down, right? London bridges, so to speak. I think when you look at this guy, Chandler is a very offensive, dynamic fighter. But on the defensive side, there's just not a lot going on there. Like, his defense is being tough as shit, wanting it really bad, like trying hard, and somewhat moving his head. Those are all the elements of his defense, Most of what he has is car crash aggression, enthusiasm, bringing the energy. But the thing that I hate the most about Michael Chandler, as somebody that's bet on him and lost several, bets on his money line, this guy does not fight to win fights. He fights to entertain. And if you have any doubts, watch what he says after that last fight. Are you not entertained? I'm here to put on a show. I'm like, brother, I'm here for you to fucking win the fight, please. Can you fucking win the fight, please? Can we do that? Can that be the priority? This is a sport, right? It's a sport. Go fucking win the fucking sport. Don't fucking win. I won the moment. I did a fucking cool slam when I'm down 4 rounds. Like, all these things honestly piss me off. Like, even just as a competitor, man, like, I get wanting to be the guy that goes out there, puts on a fun scrap and makes it a show and all those things. There's some value to that, some utility to that. Not as a gambler, right? They don't give you a refund because he hit a fucking cool back slam, right? Nobody said like, hey, yeah, he lost to Charles 4 rounds to 1, but did you remember that slam? Dude, here's $10 back. It's like, no, there's no issue. We're not issuing refunds based on the enthusiasm and the energy and the excitement. So for me, I don't trust Chandler at this point to go out there, be smart, fight to a game plan that makes sense. Do I think he's live to win this fight by knockout? 100%. If I was to invest in the Chandler side, plus money on the money line, I get where some people will click that. I would look at, the early KO props. Like, we've seen Paddy be in some trouble in those kind of situations, right? But it's the kind of fight to me where I'm seeing Paddy Pimblett as a guy that used to be pretty fraudulent and has made some real improvements and like buckled down on his game and gotten serious. Looks like he's in really good shape, right? Like, the last couple of fights, looks like he's showing up ready to compete. Maybe getting on a new supplement routine, whatever he's got to do, right? I feel like the guy's been showing up ready to perform in his last couple. And I feel like Michael Chandler on the other side, I feel like he was lucky to make it through those 5 rounds with Charles Oliveira. And I think Charles, honestly, was trying to show that he had cardio to go the full 25 because, dude, he was on his back, like chilling, like looking up in the crowd. Like, I feel like the normal aggression to finish that we see from Charles wasn't there. And he basically said after the fact, like, yeah, I thought I could have beat this guy any which way, and I'm just like, what is the UFC trying to accomplish here? Do they want the guy that has been like basically the ultimate company guy to get the payoff here? That's one theory, and I definitely get that. It makes sense. Like, hey, give him a big fight, give him an opportunity. Missed the McGregor, show waiting for us. Like, But on the other side, it's a cutthroat business. It's like one of the most ruthless businesses of all time. And I feel like the most MMA outcome is Michael Chandler wastes 2 years of his career waiting for Conor McGregor, comes back to fight a lesser version and gets submitted, gets knocked out, and the story kind of ends in tragedy. So that's the way that I see this going, man. If I was to get involved, the thing I'd look for most is violence. I would be surprised if this fight goes the full 25 because of the two guys involved. Like Michael Chandler, for me, the Dustin Poirier fight was a bad look in terms of if you get into grappling exchanges with Paddy. Like Dustin's a good grappler, but he wants to strike. He wants to bang it out. He's a jiu-jitsu player by like convenience, right? And Paddy is an all-in jiu-jitsu player. And I just think that if he's on your back, like fucking problems for Michael Chandler. Michael is good, very good at doing his like grab the baseball back rip and two-hand spin. But even that we saw against Charles Oliveira kind of reached its utility. Like he can't really do it to get out anymore. He could just do it to hold on to prevent the finish. So I don't see it going well for either one of these guys. If Paddy's extended on the feet for too long and not hurting Michael, doesn't take his leg out from under him, Michael's dangerous and he's going to walk him down with power shots. We know that. But on the other side, like I just like more of Paddy's game right now. I think he's the fresher guy, 30 years of age. We always talk about the book Fightnomics. Over 38 years of age, the rate at which fighters get knocked out skyrockets. So I think that if these guys were both, early 30s, like you would put Michael Chandler on a little bit more of a different tier in terms of power, in terms of his ability to strike. Maybe you still want to say that, but I say his durability, his ability to take the blows coming back at him. I think at 38 years of age, with all the damage that he's incurred in a long career in fighting, I think that's where you have to say, maybe a little bit of an equalizer for Paddy. And I think the grappling, in terms of who's more dangerous, I favor Paddy there. So fun fight. Cardio, give me Chandler, but give me Paddy Pimblett in terms of who's the more dangerous guy. So he's my pick, man. Tricky fight, though. Anything you want to add here?
Yeah, I mentioned in our private chat, I can't really speak on this fight too much. I'm involved in one of the sides, so no words, but War Chandler.
Oh, hell yeah, my brother. I'm just seeing now what you had to say. So that's awesome, man. Shout out to you. Shout out to our guy Wizz on the ground, my man. I know our guy Torres Finney was getting lit up in terms of the critics online, right? But at the end of the day, guys, it's a UFC fight, right? The number one job is to win the fight. And he went out there, found a way to win. For me, hats off to the guy. And I thought people were a little too harsh. So Lord willing, he gets another great opportunity next time and shows a little bit more of what he's capable of. But I think that this should be a great scrap. And we will not be hearing from our guy Wiz on this one, but we'll be wishing him nothing but the best. And shout out to our guy Dan in the chat. Says Will Brooks is coaching these days. He says true story, can confirm about the Will Brooks fight. He saw my man Michael Chandler out there fighting demons. But ultimately, I think that Paddy has a chin. Shout out to Corner Pressure. I think that makes a lot of sense. Paddy's got a great chin. Michael Chandler, I don't think has a great chin, but Michael Chandler has nuclear power. I think Paddy just has good power. So, man, fun fight, great scrap. I understand the matchmaking. Somebody's probably getting put on a highlight reel here, and that's the kind of fights that UFC fans love. So, great co-main event. Let's see how it goes. Last, and certainly not least, my brother. Do you believe in destiny, Wiz?
Dream, believe, and make it happen. No, let's get serious here, dude. Diego Lopes, one of the most electric fighters in the UFC at the moment. Probably no, not the fastest fast track in the history of the UFC. I think that belongs to maybe Steve Erceg. Was it 3 fights until?
I think Brock Lesnar had a 5-3 record when he had already defended the heavyweight title a couple of times. So I'll put Brock up there.
You got me there. You got me with that one. But dude's been performing. Like he goes out there, and no matter who they put in front of him, he's been handling business. And sure, I agree with some of the claims that not the best, not the most aggressive schedule for Diego Lopes. I mean, we take a look at his past few opponents, and You see Brian Ortega, who was one fight removed from either retiring or now is moving up to 155. You look at Dan Ige, who was coming in on short notice, like within a day, and still put up a really good fight. In that third round, almost finished him. And then, and I was big on Diego Lopes against Brian Ortega, my biggest bet to date. So I may be slightly biased to the Lopes side, but not at all here. And then right before that, the KO against Sadiq Youssef in the first round, which we didn't really see too much there. Wait, was that the? Am I remembering this wrong for the Sadiq Youssef fight? Because I did not take that one.
He knocked him out with the.
It was the first
uppercut
round.
from the
Yeah,
clinch.
I am remembering correctly. Okay, cool. And then you look on the Volk side. I mean, obviously Volk, arguably the greatest 145er the UFC has ever seen, and I've been watching Volk ever since. This was Gustafson Jones 2 here in Inglewood, California. That was the first fight. I think Volk was fighting. Why am I drawing a blank? That's how I discovered Volk. Chad Mendez, I believe, was the name. And ever since I watched that fight, and I went all the way down, there was nobody in the stands that early on, and I was watching that fight front and center. I'm like, damn, this guy's good. And he was putting a beating on Chad Mendez. And then he goes on to be the arguably the greatest ever in terms of the featherweight division, and feather to his cap there. Now, when we're looking at this matchup, we see a guy in Diego Lopes who is a very opportunistic finisher, very aggressive on the mat, and in the striking, he looks to put you out with every single punch that he throws, and his striking has been evolving fight to fight. And you start with the Evloev fight, just very meat and potatoes, ones and twos, and gets taken down. And then now you see him starting to piece together 3, 4, 5 punch combos. And that's something that I would say is a testament to A, his work ethic, but more importantly, B, also his camp. Really solid camp at the Lobo gym, but this guy's been going everywhere to train, getting good looks from all around the world. So evolving his game as he goes through the UFC, which led him up to this point. And then Volkanovski, we already know what we're getting. It's a finished product. So in that case, I do see a little bit of upside on the Lopes side, but I do generally tend to think that Lopes has 2 rounds, maybe 2 rounds and a half to finish Volk before Volk starts running away from it with it. Because to this point, what have we seen hard evidence of? And it's hard evidence of Diego Lopes gassing in fights as they go on, and you don't see as much pop in his punches. Like, he dropped Ortega silly in round 1. The follow-up punch woke him up. And then as the fight wore on, those punches became weaker and weaker. And in the third round, you just almost see Lopes barely have any power, still landing, but just touching Ortega. And I think he could have finished that fight at any point if he had the energy. Sometimes when you redline like that and you go for the finish, that's just going to happen. And I think if he doesn't successfully do it in the first 2 rounds against Volkanovski, I think Volkanovski pulls away in round 3, 4, and 5. I just don't see any other way. I think the leg kicks on the Volkanovski side is going to be a big factor here, just in terms of limiting the mobility of Diego Lopes. And I think when this fight, if it does hit the mat, the ground and pound of Volkanovski is second to none. He's one of the best ground and pound artists in the game, and very positionally sound. And I think he'll be able to stay safe in terms of the submissions. Now, I'm going to say all of this to say that I would not be laying money on this fight personally, because there's a lot of iterations as to how this could end and then for which fighter. So for me, I'm going to watch this as a fan. I think this is a tremendous fight to have as our main event here. And this is going to be either the start of a new era, dream, believe, and make it happen. And I'm rooting for my guy, Diego Lopes. But I do see a world where Volkanovski shows the vet savvy, looks to be in the best shape of his career, goes out there and gets it done via decision. So it's either Lopes KO early or Volk decision for me. How do you see it, Liam?
I do not think this is an easy fight to call by any means. I think it's a fascinating fight. I think it's good matchmaking. I want to make an argument that I don't think I've heard a lot of people make this week, which is I think people might be disrespecting Diego Lopes a little bit in terms of how they talk about the guy. The guy, if you listen to his story, if you know his background, he barely had enough money to eat. The guy was struggling financially, trying to just find any way to make it as a professional. So he took a lot of fights in suboptimal circumstances, taken on short notice, taken when you don't have the financial resources to fuel, right? Like when you're an athlete, you have to treat your body like a machine, right? You want to fuel it properly to perform. If you can't afford things, you can't do it. People talk about why is Jake Paul successful? Is it not obvious? He's fucking rich. He can spend all of his time doing this. He can invest in the best drugs, the best food, the best training, the best everything, right? When you have money to blow, it becomes a lot easier. So there's two dynamics, which is like sleeping on silk sheets. If you're too wealthy, if everything's too easy, you're Conor McGregor. You don't want to fight at all. But if you're Jake Paul and everybody thinks that you're not a tough guy, you're just a Disney kid, and then all the motivation is I'll use all my infinite resources to prove how tough I am. It's just the psychology of human beings. But in any case, I say all that to say, Diego Lopes has multiple 5-round fights, which a lot of people, if you had just listened to a lot of breakdowns this week, this guy can only fight for 2 rounds. Like he's never been 5 rounds. He doesn't know what 5 rounds are. He's never seen or heard of them. It's like, yes, he slows down because he's trying to take people's head off with his shots, right? When you throw everything into every punch, not sustainable over 5 rounds. But you go back and watch, I think it was Nate Williams, right? 5-round fight, Fury FC. Like, yeah, you shouldn't be probably going to close decisions in Fury FC type main events, but it's a 5-rounder. Honestly, I thought it could have went either way. In that fight, Diego wrestled, right? He came out, he had a different style than he does in his current iteration. He was out there wrestling, trying to take this guy down, spending some energy in the grappling, and took the back multiple times. Like, he did some things right, but he couldn't submit the guy, right? He was on his back. He couldn't submit him from there. So then he spent a lot of time and energy looking for the subs, looking to wrestle. That's exhausting. And now it's a 5-round fight. So he's out there still training. By the way, still throwing decent power, right? He buzzed that guy multiple times late in the fight. The problem was he just couldn't sustain it. He couldn't keep enough offense going. His opponent was picking up the pace a little bit. Split decision goes against him, right? It was tough. He's been scheduled for 5 multiple times in his career. Like, he's been in a bunch of title fights. He just finishes a lot of them. So he doesn't have many 5-rounders on his resume because he finished a lot of guys. But he has 1 win, I believe, in a fight that went 5 rounds. I believe he won a unanimous decision. Again, this is all off the top of my head, so please forgive if I have any details slightly off. In my articles, I pride myself on getting the details right. When I'm just recounting a huge volume of information, I will not always be perfect, but I try my best, and I hope you guys can tell I am familiar with the subject matter, right? It's all from the top of my head. So Diego Lopes, I think, doesn't get credit for the fact that he's one of the well-rounded fighters you see out there, right? Like, if you just said, like, dump this guy into a black belt grappling tournament, yeah, he might not win. You're going to go out there and compete, right? He's going to give you an honest look. He's going to attempt some subs. He's going to put some guys in danger. Like, he's that kind of guy. He's not afraid of the ruckus. Then you look at, okay, what about a striking fight? This guy can diddy bot, man. Like, just on no skills alone, right? You said no techniques, no skills. This guy can hurt people, man. He can just grab a hold of the back of your head, the oldest punch in the book, right? Collar tie, bing, right? We saw Rob Font knock out Adrian Yanez with that punch. Is it great sophistication? No, it's I hold your head so you can't move it, then I punch it as hard as I can. Diego Lopes does that, and people don't fucking move. Sadiq Yusuf hit the deck. It's like, you see this guy, it's not always great sophistication. It's about who's an effective fighter. Diego Lopes is a very effective fighter, as I see it. He can submit you on the ground, he can knock you out on the feet, and he can bang with you on the feet, right? Brian Ortega, yeah, he gave him some back. Did he win? Did he look like he was close to winning? No. Here's the other thing that's interesting, right? Last great standout win for our guy Volk, Yair Rodriguez. How did he do it? He takes him down, dominates from the top position. It was a beautiful performance. If you guys have been watching my show for a long time, you guys know I'm like the oldest Volk truther. I fucking love this guy. I thought he was brilliant. I used to give these long diatribes. Everybody and their dog was telling you how Max Holloway has to win the trilogy. He's such a good fighter. How can he lose again? And I said, no. He had his best fight that he ever has had in the second fight, and he still couldn't win. I was like, it's over. Now I'm saying, like, I loved Volk because he's a dogged competitor. His confidence was through the roof. The guy's got skills in all positions. He's going to fight hard for your money. Like there's a lot to love about Alexander Volkanovski. There's a reason he's great. When he first came to the UFC, this guy, they signed him up. He comes out there, gets a win, and he starts calling out Max Holloway then. He said, I am the worst matchup for Max Holloway. He has nightmares about me. He does not want to see me. He said, I'm a problem for jiu-jitsu guys. I'm a problem for wrestlers. I'm a problem for strikers. He let it be known, I'm here. I'm the guy right now. You don't want a problem with me. And then he worked his way up the division. The one thing I will say about what my brother Wizz had to say, the performance against Chad Mendes was impressive. You know why? Because he faced some adversity. Chad Mendes buzzed him, man. He hit him with a big shot, closed up his eye a little bit, and Volk starts taking a couple steps back. He's like, shit, I can't see too good. And you know what he did? He made a decision in that moment. I'm going to bite down on my mouthpiece, and I'm going to walk forward into Chad Mendes, who just hurt me, and I'm going to break this man. And he walked him down, and he beat his ass, and he broke him. That is why Volk is a great. That is what makes him special. He is the consummate competitor. When Brian Ortega drops him with an uppercut, follows him to the ground, and looks to choke him, he couldn't get him out of there. He came very close. And as soon as he let go, Volk is on top, punching, and making you pay. He's like, you thought you were going to win this fight? Hold these for even trying to win this fight, for even thinking you had a chance to win this fight. That's who Volk is as a competitor at his best. That's why he's scary. That's why he's a world champion. But here is my argument for folks. Confidence is key. Confidence is such a powerful force in fighting. The belief in self. Whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. A lot of guys lose the fight before it ever gets started. I like Volk in most matchups, in most theoretical matchups and all these things, because I know he's going to fight hard. I know he's going to have a good game plan. He's smart. He knows what to do. Volkanovski goes out there, competes very close with Islam Makhachev. And then they run it back, right? And obviously it was under not ideal circumstances. But Volkanovski gets brutally knocked out in a fight that he had just competed tooth and nail, right? He got dropped in that first fight. I think people forget. Both guys had success in opposite places that people expected, right? Islam dropped Volk in the first fight, but he also got hurt in that fight late in the fight. His cardio was a question mark, and the grappling was more honest than people expected. Then you look at, okay, how'd it go the second time? Islam cleaned him up in the striking. But what happened after the fight? Volk comes to the media and he basically says, I don't know why I took this fight. He said, I was drinking. I was out of shape. I don't know why I took this fight. I just needed something to do. I wasn't comfortable at my house. Red flag. I said it that time. I said it at the time. I was like, if you're talking about, why did I take this fight? I shouldn't have taken this fight. All big red flags, right? Now he's suffered a knockout loss. That's going to affect your confidence. He got a win back. Did that bring everything back? Did that bring back the confidence? No. And you know what my evidence is? The words of Alexander Volkanovski, who said after the Ilia Topuria fight, I felt great. I was moving well. I felt like I was doing a great job. But there was a couple times out there I just couldn't pull that trigger. I wanted to go and I couldn't. I can tell you guys, after watching a lot of fights, one of the number one signs that a fighter is washed is when they stop being offensive, when they stop pulling the trigger on offense. Fighting is right now. Sometimes there's a moment. There's one opportunity. You got to capitalize right now. And he was thinking. He was hesitating. The whole point of fighting, everything that you do in training, the reason you hit mitts is so it can be ta-ta. Everything ingrained. I don't have to think about it. When I throw the 1-2, I move my head and then I throw it's like I want everything to flow. And he's not flowing by his admission. He's saying, I wanted to do and I couldn't do. I was frozen. That's not a lack of preparation. That's not a lack of skill. That's a lack of confidence. And it will only be exacerbated by getting brutally knocked out again. Right? We saw years ago when the question was asked by Chad Mendes, he bit down on the mouthpiece and said, I'm right here. You can't hurt me. You can't break me. I will walk you down. He can be hurt. That's a fact. He can be broken. It's a sad fact. We've just seen it. We know it can happen. He can be put down. Diego Lopes You can say things positive and negative. This guy is hard to kill. That's what we know. He's been put away with strikes twice. I think it was 2018, back on the Russian regional scene. I don't even know if my man had enough to eat at that time, right? And he's out there, he's underneath, he's looking for submissions off his back. Does that remind you of Diego Lopes nowadays? Not really, right? Is he out there guard pulling and looking to play off his back and stuff? Not really. He's mostly looking to try and knock people's head off these days, right? Here's the other thing. My guy Wiz talked about he's going around training at a lot of different great places. Yes, he is. How about going and getting wrestling practices in at the Oklahoma State room with David Taylor, Olympic champ? How about those? That's probably a good place to be, right? Probably a smart place to improve your skills. I think the number one thing he needs to do in this fight is try to keep the fight upright. And when he can't keep the fight upright, use his dynamic jiu-jitsu to create scrambles, try and get back up to the feet. Try and make Volk work from on top, not feel comfortable on top. Yair Rodriguez, as far as I'm concerned, has a dynamic guard in terms of he will throw up submissions, but his ground game is not good, right? It's got a lot of holes and vulnerabilities in it. And I think the opposite is true of Diego Lopes, where I think he's solid on the back. I don't think he's an elite back taker, let's say. I think he's solid on the back. I think his guard is elite in this division. I think almost anybody who hangs out in his guard is going to be met with several dangerous threats. It's the way I see it. He can enter legs. He can enter arm bars. He can put you under threat. I mean, he almost snapped Gavin Tucker's arm in half. That guy's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, never been submitted before or since. It's like, you go through the ledger for this guy. Sadiq Youssef, is he an easy guy to just bang out of there? I mean, go watch the other guys that have fought him and gone to war with Sadiq. Not been able to put him down, not been able to put him away. Some guys have been able to buzz him. They've been able to hurt him. Diego Lopes said, sit down, young man, and followed him to the ground and made sure of it. Pat Sabatini, who I made the case, was a better fighter than people were giving him credit for. I was like, I'm 100% sure that this guy is one of the best grapplers in the division. And he proved it by dominating Joe Anderson Brito in a way that nobody else had, right? What did he do against Diego Lopes? Zero. He tried to wrestle Diego Lopes, and Diego Lopes is whipping him over. He's throwing him around. He's out-grappling him. When they get back up into the clinch exchanges, he hits him with another big uppercut, which, by the way, it's like his calling card, right? He grabs a hold of the back of the head, throws these big uppercuts, starts hurting people. He then follows Pat Sabatini to the ground, snakes behind him for that Dagestani handcuff as he bangs him out of there with right hands that Pat literally could do nothing about. Like, he was in such a position that he was trapped around the waist, he's got the arm behind the back, and he's punching you unobstructed with a free hand. That's a really bad spot to be. So I say all of this to say, I view Diego Lopes as a guy that whether he wins or loses this fight, bro, he fucking earned this opportunity. Says yes at every turn. Passed Movsar Evloev for this opportunity. Why? Because Movsar hasn't finished anybody, and he's had a million opportunities. And Diego Lopes had one short notice fight where he showed how much he wanted it, where he, like Alexander Volkanovski, announced himself from the first time he got to the UFC and said, I'm here not to take part. Conor McGregor-esque, I'm here to take over. I'm here for keeps. I'm here for the big show. I'm not here for the fucking pittance. I want the big stuff right now. I'm ready for the smoke. That's what he said. They threw him in the deep end of the pool for a lot of these, and he's coming up aces. That's why he's getting this big shot. That's why he's getting this opportunity. And I think that when you look at what he brings to the table, it's dynamic offense. It's a willingness to throw. It's an exciting style, and he's dangerous everywhere. So if you want to bring it to the ground, okay, I'll throw some shit. We'll find out if you're ready in all positions on, right? You have to be very smart, calculated, on point. That's what you need to do to stay on top of this guy, period. Otherwise, you will be put in danger. Fact. All right, if we're not going on top, it's like we're going to bang it out on the feet. We're going to find out there. I think Volk is extremely skilled. He's clearly more skilled as a kickboxer, but I don't think he's as dangerous. And I don't think he can hurt Diego Lopes the same way that Diego Lopes can hurt him. I think he can fatigue him. I think he can beat him up down the stretch. I think he can tire him out. All those things I could see for Alexander Volkanovski. I think he's got the skills, the intensity, the aggression, right? When he gets on top of people, when he starts wearing them down, he did it to Yair. He did it to Brian Ortega. And frankly, it was a minor miracle that fight wasn't stopped. Then you look at the fight against Korean Zombie. I had inside the distance big for Volkanovski. I had the fight not to go big. I was like, it just seemed like a layup, right? Against Max Holloway, I had Volk ITD. Believed in this guy. In the third fight, if he didn't break that hand, he might have been the first guy to put him down. But when it comes down to it, man, Volk is not the same proven power threat. And when I look back, every guy that I've ever tried to fade Alexander Volkanovski with was a simple rationale. You can't be a guy that's going to go out there and try and point fight with him like Max Holloway, or you'll lose every time because he's the best tactician. He's the smartest. He knows how to win. He's a gamer. But if you make it about who's the most dangerous fighter on the night, this guy, Alexander Volkanovski, as great as he is, has been stopped with strikes 3 times. Welterweight regionals, he got stopped with strikes. He got head kicked and finished. Ilia Topuria, he got brutally knocked out in the second round. Islam Makhachev, 1 head kick, my man is bouncing off the cage. None of it to make light of it. It's just to evaluate the facts as they are. On the other side, Diego Lopes, I've seen him go 5 rounds. I've seen him go out there and compete hard. I've seen him go out there and drop guys, right? The wins for Volkanovski are the same guys that Diego Lopes has been going out there and beating, right? Brian Ortega, that's a great win for Alexander Volkanovski. And now when Diego Lopes gets it, he sucks. He's a bum. He's washed. Maybe Volk made all those things true, but like he went out there and had a war with Max. He had a war with Volk, by the way. I bet him plus 150. I remember he scared Volk more than anybody. I bet Yair half a unit at plus 350. Everybody said, Liam, you're a fool. And I said, listen, I don't want to miss the Volk fade when it comes because I know it's coming. He's older for the division. He's a small guy. He's been hurt many times. It's going to come when he goes against these strikers. He goes against Yair. He just dominated him. I said, okay, fair play. My biggest bet ever fading Volk was 2.5 units on Ilia Topuria at plus 152 and plus 125. I hit it again on the way down. I said, I don't think this is going to work out for Volk. He had some success, 1 round of success. The problem is he was always 1 exchange away from losing the fight. That's how I felt against Ilia. That's how I feel against Diego Lopes. Maybe Diego Lopes can only fight him for 2 rounds. I think that's possible. But I also think I've seen Diego Lopes land big shots that hurt people in the 3rd round and the 4th round. So I'm supposed to expect that he can't do that now? I think Diego Lopes is a dangerous enough guy that he needs 1 exchange to win this fight. I think that Alexander Volkanovski is a great enough fighter that he can win this with process, with takedowns, with enthusiasm, with cardio. But I think he's got to fight a perfect fight. He's got to fight a really smart fight to win it. And I think on the other side, Diego Lopes could accidentally win this with 1 big shot at any point in the fight. So for me, I just think Diego's a dangerous guy, man. And I think there's a reason he's getting this opportunity. So it's big respect for both guys. For me, as far as I'm concerned, I'm looking at violence here. I think that if Diego Lopes doesn't win this belt, I think he might die trying type of deal. I think he's going to go out there on his shield or come back with the shield or on it, as they say. And that's what I'm expecting, man. I think it's going to be a great fight. I'm fired up for it. My pick, Diego Lopes, knockout. I think he's going to get the job done, man.
Beautiful.
There
What
you
a
have
breakdown, bro. You were going off with that one.
My brother, I've been thinking about this a lot. I honestly believe this is a fantastic fight. I can't ask for much more in terms of matchmaking. I'm as compelled as I could get for a fight. Wanted to shout out the chat that we had a lot of really kind words in the chat. Let me see here. K Deep said, Liam, your breakdowns are amazing. Seen your name, stumbled on a live breakdown, and I've been impressed. Very informative and helpful. Respect, bro. I saw that comment before. I thought it was very kind to you. Wanted to make sure I circled back to that. Thank you so much. Too kind. We've got a bunch of the goats in here. We've got Rick the Ruler, AW, Insidious Gorilla, Pick'em MMA. Shout out to each and every one of you guys. I think we've got a lot of great fights that we broke down. I hope that you guys got a lot of value from it. Sharpest chat in the game each and every time. My brother Wiz, anything you got to say to the people, anything you want to get off your chest, anywhere they can find you, the floor is yours, my brother.
Yeah, as always, thank you, Liam, for having me on again. Another great week of breakdowns, looking to make this 4 weeks in a row of profit. And I know today we didn't have the plant the flag play, but, you know, you can't force it every week. It's just not there this time. But, yeah, you guys can find me at WizzMMA everywhere, YouTube, Twitter. I'm looking to get more and more involved into this game as this year goes on and looking to get some valuable information out, obviously in the right way. So looking to help and do as much as I can to guide you guys in the right direction.
Hell yeah, brother. I want to say thank you to everybody who's rocking with us. I know it's late night for some of y'all folks. Wanted to also say we can always, disagree, guys. It's all good. There's more than one sharp way to break down a fight. I always say there's more than one way to profit betting on this sport. Everybody's got strengths and weaknesses. I will say I've done very well betting on Volkanovski fights. Diego Lopes, I bet him in his first fight when he lost as a plus 600 underdog against Movsar Evloev, and I haven't gotten back to the window since, right? So kind of kept my hands clean a bit. I'm not saying that I'm going out parting ways with my money on Diego Lopes here, but I always try and give you guys my honest, sincere opinions. And I just sincerely believe that this is a fight that Diego Lopes can win. So that's why I gave the breakdown that I gave. I'm a huge Volk fan. I respect both guys. I really want to say the UFC doesn't always deserve our plaudits. Hey, nicely done matching this card together. It's a very well-matched card. It's fun, interesting fights. I think there was a lot of great angles to break down. So Lord willing, we'll find some winners for you guys. Hopefully everybody enjoyed the show. If you have comments, questions, concerns, you can go ahead and drop those down below. I want to give you guys one little teaser. I'm going to be doing an interview tomorrow with a up-and-coming flyweight fighter. So that's something that you guys can be looking forward to, a flyweight on the rise, so to speak, and somebody, a name to remember. So wanted to just put that out into the ether, something to look forward to, guys. But also, if you're looking for UFC 314 content, I already have a bunch posted up on Patreon. The prelims, I've written out all my thoughts on all those fights. Tomorrow, I will have all my main card thoughts done. So 8 fights written up already today. And then we're looking for 5 more of them tomorrow. So my DFS thoughts and also my main card predictions will be written up by tomorrow. But that's all I got for you guys. God bless. Thank you all so much for the support. Until next time, come back and we're going to do all the same and have all the same fun next week. So see you guys. Take care.